So we were like writing and shooting, which is not the best way to do things, but I think the film kind of found its story as we shot it, which is kind of interesting.
Well, that's reassuring to hear. It's not like the script is important or anything. Also, what does he mean by the film found its story? The comic and the '94 film exists. What is there to find?
So we were like writing and shooting, which is not the best way to do things.
It's not that there's no way for a script to be written during filming, or taking a shockingly short amount of time to write one in the first place.
What is this?
Iron Man was written alongside the filming of it, and the script for Cabin in the Woods was written in 3 days. Just because it can be done does not mean it should be the norm. Making a film is difficult at the best of times, and not having a finished script before starting production only works to make things more difficult than they need to be. Hence why films such as Black Widow or Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness are as horrid as they are. A lack of redrafting with a script, or not having one altogether.
And it's just, to me, as an exploration of source material, as a kind of, as though you're an English student, you don't just read it, you have to go through it and study each sentence, and then you do your research and, well, where did this come from?
As it so happens, not only was I an English student, but also a film school graduate. Twice the pretension, double the cringe. This breakdown will chronicle the entire film, dissecting it and studying the remains. With that, buckle up, lads.
We got a long way to go.
The film starts with young Eric walking on a muddy rural path. In contrast, the original comic starts with Eric interacting with the criminal, getting information, setting the tone and atmosphere for the story. The '94 film starts with the aftermath of Eric's death and Shelley's less than pleasant experience that night. Rounding a corner, he runs to a white horse trapped in barbed wire, presented in a take lasting nearly 40 seconds. Done well, it highlights the filmmaker's competence, where the movements of the camera and the characters are dynamic, establishing a sense of scale, and the time taken for an action to take place is presented clearly. It is also capable of emphasizing the emotions of a character after experiencing something significant. If constructed with purpose and is well rehearsed, their integration in a film or a series would be seamless and efficient, accomplishing multiple things simultaneously. Alternatively, the filmmakers are working with limited time and needed to get everything done as soon as possible. As a result, it eats up valuable seconds due to the footage not being able to be tightened during editing. As such, a long take is not impressive by virtue of it being long, rather how it was executed within the context of the yarn taking place. Looking over the horse, he contemplates on how to free it, a moment eerily similar to Zebraman from The Last of Us Part 2. This plot mechanic is a way of fast-tracking character. An animal is hurt and the character goes out of their way to help set the creature free. In short, saving the cat. This can be done well as long as more is done with the character as a result. If it is simply here to show he is a good man, it is cheap and manipulative. Manipulating the viewer's emotions is something the storytellers aim for, but how it is done is very important. When it is a result of story, themes and character all resonating and contributing in a consistent manner, it is earned. However, if it is showing Baby Yoda doing cute things, it is not. This moment is intercut with potentially present-day Eric in bed, twisting and turning. There are two possible perspectives here. Either, while asleep, he is reliving a childhood memory, or is a nightmare where he is his younger self. There is no context at this point to make a conclusion one way or another. The horse may be a reference to the comic, where Eric is in a train, accompanied by a crow, and potentially a modern interpretation of Charon the ferryman, carrying his soul into the afterlife. A horse runs along the train, looking to him and not noticing the barbed wire, gets caught in it. Observing Eric's sadness, the crow points out he shouldn't have looked. Looking at this as a dream could be seen as potential foreshadowing. A pure soul trapped and hurt by his bonds with no way of escaping, regardless of the help offered to him by others. Some call it symbolism. Alternatively, if taking the references to the Book of Revelations, this could be the horse ridden by conquest of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, laying waste to all in front of it. Or is the one Jesus rides as he returns to judge the evils of his enemy. Which horse this is meant to represent would depend heavily on who Eric is as a character. The film briefly shows his mother, sleeping in a messy home. highlighting his upbringing is less than positive, leading to present-day Eric in the asylum. Quite a deviation from not only the original film but also the comic.
When someone you love dies, you will know emptiness.
Placed here with the trapped horse shown, these lines create the idea that perhaps his life was so appalling the horse was his only friend. This could add a degree of tragedy if further developed, accentuating the cruelty of the people around him, and potentially being the reason why the horse is trapped, compounding on the tragedy. The bobbed Y snaps back, cutting his palms, going hyper film school pretension mode.
Lots of cunts.
Perhaps by combining his age, the horse, and blood on his hands. Despite his innocence, he would one day have to get blood on his hands to protect those he loves, even if they do die. Or it could be a reference to Jesus and his sacrifice during the crucifixion, where he would sacrifice his own life for the sake of those he loves.
You will know what it is to be completely and utterly alone.
If this line was absent, nothing would be missed because it is communicated by the presentation of the scene. The voiceover in the original worked to set up the premise, while establishing the setting the story is taking place in, achieving two things at once. Here, it is repetition.
You will never forget.
The crows fly in an erratic manner, mirroring Eric's emotional state at losing the one creature in his life to treat him well.
And you will never, ever forgive.
This line stands out because it is symptomatic of cliché writing serving as a narrative shorthand without developing their own standards. There is nothing to forgive, and if there was, the context is absent, showing a disconnect between the visual shown and the dialogue spoken. The prologue ends with Eric waking up, leading to the title sequence. There are two primary types of title sequences in film. One, stylized as it is here, to match the tone and aesthetic of the film. David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo has such an opening, highlighting character relationships, brutal actions acting as foreshadowing, and the themes within, constructed as a music video to a cover of Immigrant Song. Alternatively, there's Zack Snyder's Watchmen, detailing the visual history of the world, characters and backstories, the stakes and themes, all framed by Bob Dylan's In 5 minutes, all the necessary information is provided, both different, yet when done well, conveying a lot in a short burst of time. Here, Pennywise is sloshing around in blood. It could be him drowning in a sea of blood as he tries to keep himself afloat, resisting the bloodlust and losing himself in it. Having the film's original soundtrack helps set the tone. However, The Crow, whether the film or comic, has heavy references to music throughout, and to not use a song seems a missed opportunity. Looking at the time spent in the opening credits for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it lasts 2.5 minutes while Watchmen is 5.5. A lot is done in both. Watchmen alone presents what amounts to a history textbook. Comparatively, the sequence here is a minute long, and little is done beyond what has already been shown. It's wasted potential.
We couldn't have remade the original now. Like the idea of seeing a brutal rape at the beginning and a woman just being like a kind of a silhouette. There's no character to that woman in the original Shelley. She's not there. You know, to me, this film doesn't work without us falling in love with Twigs. And also, I think you don't go on a story. I didn't want to make a nihilistic revenge movie where angry man kills lots of people because my woman's dead. You know.
Oh, fucking hell.
The film then moves to New York. In the source material, the city itself had a personality unique to the story it is telling, making it a character in its own right. By using Chicago, it dilutes this uniqueness in favor of it being any other city. Inside an apartment, a record is spinning perpetually while a mess is strewn about.
Your room, put it in order.
This shows either a lack of care or awareness for the things around the character. The pills and rolled up bill on the table indicates she is a heavy user.
Sadie?
The lethargy in her voice hints to the idea she is so high she can hear With Pennywise currently being in rehab and Twigs being a heavy user, it is feasible they will meet in rehab. The question is, how?
Shelly, did you see what I sent you? No, what is it?
While the city lacks personality, the atmosphere with the lack of color and heavy rain is a nice touch, provided it persists. So prominent was it in the '94 film that it led to the iconic line,
It can't rain all the time.
Stop. I showed the video to someone. I think they found out.
With this, both the mystery of the film and the MacGuffin is set up, along with the level of intimidation exerted on the characters by the villain, alluding to the scope of the network and their resources. If Zadie had this incriminating video on the villain, why has she held onto it instead of trying to pass it on to the authorities? Or put it online in the hopes of exposing them? Why show it to another, who from the timeline seems to be a mole that ratted on her? Why send it to Shelley and risk her life as well? Perhaps one or both of them are participants in the video, prompting them to consider if prison time is a worthy trade-off for taking down the organization. Then again, if they were forced to commit a crime, they may be able to stay free, or at least in witness protection. There is also the possibility law enforcement has been paid off by the villain.
What the fuck is going on?
Based on her reaction, how long was she unconscious? When did Zadie send the video? Was she calling throughout the day? Or is this the first time she tried? Who these characters are would be dependent on the answers to these questions. For example, if Zadie sent it during the day, and Twigs was busy getting high till now, her character would be negatively affected as her inaction may have led to her friend's demise. However, if she received it moments before, she would be innocent of what would happen to Zadie if caught. Currently, it is both and neither, as the context is missing.
Check your texts.
Twigs watches the video and is quite distressed, especially if they were a part of it. That said, when and how was this video made? From how they are treating it, it had to be covertly done so as not to attract the villain's attention. Surely.
Where did you get this? Dom shot it.
Both Zadie and Twigs look to the camera, so that takes recording it covertly out of the equation. Why did the villains let them record the video? Also, as Twigs was in the video, she would know Dom recorded it, making the lines pointless as a result.
Look, we can get him with this.
How long has she had this video? Why show it to her mysterious friend? Will the film ever reveal who it is? Was it a snitch? The longer she has theoretically had the video, the more time she had to come up with a decent plan on what to do with it.
He's not invincible, Shelley. Yes, he is.
This creates some consistency in the characters, where Twigs is frightened enough to not resist, while Zadie is driven to a corner and is fighting back. It's not much, but it is something.
I'm getting my shit, but I'm getting the fuck out.
What is the plan? Is it to come forward with the footage? Or get away as soon as they can? Actually, based on the dialogue, this is a line that should be coming from Shelley because she is displaying fear while Zadie is showing defiance. The lines and the performances are not matching.
Come with me. You and Dom. The three of us.
What about the person she showed it to? Is he actually a snitch, or was he just an innocent bystander in all this?
Why the fuck did you do this? It's not safe for us here anymore.
This is a minor point, but there is a lot of profanity in this film.
Language!
Nothing inherently bad, as it can be a way of highlighting a character's feelings or constructing a creative scene. Then again, the Rob Zombie and Zack Snyder approach would, in an attempt to be mature and adult, end up juvenile instead.
Stay there. I'm coming to you.
Admirable, wanting to protect her friend and ride out the storm together. That said, Zadie's time in the film is likely short, and it would be interesting to see how Twigs deals with this loss.
I think they've got someone on them. If they're following me, they're following you.
This indicates she is observant of her surroundings, looking around as she is walking. This also explains why she did not go to the police, as she may have been caught on the way. That said, why go home, to the location most likely to be searched first, instead of a location familiar to them both?
Hello, Zadie.
From her introduction, she is likely the second in command. I can appreciate that.
Fuck this.
This inadvertently puts Twigs on their wanted list because it was seen through their chat logs. Then again, it was already said they likely had people following her. So how did they know she was involved? Or is it a matter of following everyone Zadie was close to?
There were other options, Zadie. I wish you'd talk to me first.
With Zadie captured, only Twigs and Dom remain.
Hi, you reached Dom. Leave a message.
Dom, it's me.
Reaching out to Dom is good, as it shows, despite her fear of the villain, she is looking out for her friends.
Zadie's lost her fucking mind. She just sent me some video that you shot.
A video she herself is in, and from the screams in the latter portions, unlikely forgotten.
Meet me at Zadie's. I'm gonna check on her.
Considering her most recent phone call, is this the best action? Instead of deleting the video to save her own skin, she keeps it and hides her phone. Will she come back for it later? Guide someone to the location when she is a good distance away from the chaos? Who knows? Anyway, she leaves the apartment with a look that suggests she is either so high she can see heaven, or is bored. Exiting the building, Zadie was correct in her assumption someone was tailing her. It is a competent shot as the camera transitions the primary subject from Twigs to the man in a smooth manner. This shot lasts 10 seconds. Like the opening, likely an example of artificially elongating the runtime. He makes no attempt at hiding his intentions, staring at her and making sure she is on high alert the entire time.
Not a great plan.
Bumping into 2 policemen, she grabs their attention and drops her purse, inside of which is a pharmacy's worth of pills the policemen use as grounds for arrest. Was this her plan all along, or something she came up with due to being followed? Does she usually have this many drugs on her? Why not get their attention without exposing herself while high? Or stay in a public place, reach out to them and get away together. The main reason why this happens is so she is put in the same rehab facility as Pennywise, so the rest of the film can happen. Already the writers bend the characters and narrative paths so the desired outcome is achieved without putting in the effort to have it come about organically. What's frustrating is that this is a problem of their own making.
My earlier conversations with him was before there was a script.
Disappointed!
The film then introduces Pennywise's ass and the tattoos on him. Most notably a verse from the H.P. Lovecraft poem Despair. Though that depends on who you ask.
And then, you know, on his back he's got a piece of The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe, which meant a lot to Bill as he was reading that stuff to get into the character.
For example, the thing that Eric has on his back, I think it's H.P. Lovecraft's poem, like that was like literally he wanted that.
This may be a slip-up, or in their desire to differentiate themselves from the source, they all ended up in completely different pages from each other, which is never helpful. This goes on for 20 seconds. Even the film thinks this is too long because there is a jump cut in the initial movement to speed things along. A character showering can mean many things, cleansing themselves among many. But what is the purpose here? If this scene started by establishing Serenity Park, and the shower was cut, nothing would change. Inside, the patients all wear pink. There is such a thing as pink cloud syndrome, related to the euphoria associated with the initial stages of recovery. The outfits could be a reminder to stay clean, or it might have a soothing effect on the psyche. From what I can find, each rehab has its own rules, and people wear pink for different reasons.
Originally the idea was it was a very washed out colour palette at the beginning of the film. Very bleak, muddy colours. And even going into the institution, there's not a lot of colour, it's deliberately quite beige. And at that point, Kurt and Bart and Rupert decided it'd be fun to put them in pink costumes, which is really cool, and it looked amazing, it worked really well, but it kind of got rid of the idea of not being much colour at the beginning of the film.
Motherfucker!
Eric, meek and averse to conflict as he is, seems to be at the bottom of the food chain as the rest of the patients are picking on him. And his upbringing. Getting a shot of his hands, the result of his efforts in trying to free the horse, are still visible. Flashes of different images are inserted here. The horse in barbed wire, 3 pictures being destroyed, one of a white horse and one of a man, and finally his mother shutting the door on him. Defacing the images could be a way of letting out the anger in him for what happened in his childhood being let out in a way that does not hurt others. I'm trying.
Yeah, I know this is hard, Eric, but these exercises are meant to get you past the destructive behaviors that brought you here.
Pennywise is taking part in a group therapy session. Do the attendees know he is being bullied? What brought him here in the first place? Was he made to be here by the authorities or out of a desire to get clean of his own accord?
Burying it, using drugs, that's the easy way out.
So far, everything is generalized so the viewer makes up the story as opposed to the characters within.
It's what allows you to hide that pain away.
The expressions on the participants indicates they too recognize the generalized nature of what is being said and so take nothing from it. or the professionals do not care and are doing the bare minimum.
You, gonna join us?
None speak, nor does anyone want to be here. Despite the bright colors in the environment, things are quite grim. Could be a visual way of saying that while the surface is pretty, what lies beneath is something fundamentally hopeless.
You know, Hemingway wrote, "The world breaks everyone, and afterwards..."
As the Doctor's voice fades, Pennywise is shown performing chores.
"Many are strong, the broken places.
Using this Hemingway quote is fascinating.
But those that will not break, it kills."
An example of the dialogue being as blunt as a golf club to the head. In his cell, he looks at a makeshift razor blade. Naturally. His train of thought is broken by Twigs arriving, who he is immediately infatuated by. And instead of sleeping, draws. Twigs, meanwhile, is in an empty room. Possibly to visually communicate she is attempting to have a fresh start, free from the burdens of her past. Moving to Wayne Tower, General Ludendorff himself sits, enjoying a cigar during a party filled with well-dressed men and women.
The road. Here's the young protege from Vienna I was telling Marion about.
This sets up the hierarchy of the organization. Marion is indeed the right-hand man and Ludendorff is the main villain.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Rogue.
Please, sit.
Because Ludendorff was the one named in the interaction, it is likely they are not going to be prominent in the story. Nameless characters are rarely relevant to a narrative, unless it's a Christopher Nolan film.
You know I was born in Vienna.
It could be that he was born there, and moved to the US when he was young so as not to have the native accent of his birthplace. Or he is lying to them in the hopes of ingratiating himself with the young woman. Or it's bad writing.
Cradle of immortal music.
More likely, he was talking about the great classical musicians such as Beethoven due to their music enduring through the centuries.
I've lived long enough to see some of the greats play.
What does he mean? Is he so old he watched the likes of Mozart perform in person, or greats in a more modern sense such as Ray Chan? His age and backstory will be staggeringly different depending on which perspective is true.
They tell me that you're quite dynamic yourself.
Dialogue is a wonderful thing. It can build characters, inform what they think of each other, and highlight their personal perspectives, all while challenging each other. This is an example of a character talking at a prop disguised as development. They are irrelevant and are treated as such.
May I borrow you?
Yes.
This interaction established Ludendorff as well regarded in upper-class society, and is very old. Do the people around know what he is? If they do, what do they think of him? The mechanics of how this world operates is on shaky ground, and is in the best interest of the film to not address it so as not to destroy things completely.
I look forward to hearing you play.
There is no response from them as he leaves. Were they replaced with planks of wood, nothing would change.
What is it?
We found her.
The scene to follow involves Zadie and what her fate is to be. Lift it and carry it. It's not that hard. Dragging it is not intimidating, it's annoying.
It's alright, Zadie. It's alright.
This is meant to be serious, however the scene has a lot in common with Kung Fu Hustle. Only this film is not self-aware.
What's done is done. We're looking for your friends.
There is potential here for an interesting conversation, to see if Zadie could be brought to the point of potentially betraying the others if it meant living, or if she would remain loyal throughout, compounded with how he would react to whichever path she takes.
Have you seen Shutting?
No.
Ordinarily, one of the villains would smack her and ask again.
You're a good person, Zadie. You wouldn't tell me if you knew.
Instead of continuing the interrogation, the film fast-tracks the calm, composed Evilman. Zadie's perspective is communicated not through her, but from Ludendorff, bypassing the opportunity to build characters through their decisions in this high-stress moment.
I've killed hundreds of innocents like you.
This explains the long life he hinted at prior, but what are the parameters of what is considered good? Is it as dictated by the law, the tenets of God, society, or something incredibly arbitrary that is flexible towards what the film needs to happen? She is loyal, has a sense of morality, and potentially takes drugs. Not much else is known about her.
In the centuries that I've been here, it never gets any easier.
If he was behaving in any way other than a villain, this may be something interesting to explore in greater detail, but that would be asking too much from a film that is trying to be as mature as this one.
I wish the murderers and rapists and scum of the earth would do.
If I am hyper-generous. This may be a perspective he once believed in. However, after being exposed to this ritual for centuries, he has become desensitized to the machinations of his immortality, which begs the question of what made him choose this life in the first place.
They go to hell already, you see.
While revealing the stipulations of his immortality is good for the audience to understand, why tell this to Zadie? Is he being genuine? Or is it a moment of self-reflection, explaining it to the victim as if to justify this action to himself? What is his reason for living and sacrificing so many lives to prolong his own? He could be lying, which would make him quite sadistic in mentally torturing his victims in such a way, though there is a lack of evidence to characterize him one way or another at this point in time, and is something that will hopefully be clarified as the film goes on.
Whereas people like you, those are the souls that he wants.
A literal deal with the devil, though now it is reiterating the point.
The deal I made. You go to hell, so I don't have to.
This is an example of repeating the same line using different words, despite the point having long since been made.
Please let me go.
You can go.
Following the funky spell, her eyes roll up and picking up the knife placed beside her, kills herself as if she is infected by the trees in the happening. Cutting his hand and placing it on her wound, he sucks her soul out of her body, maybe. Shifting to Pennywise, he is in the courtyard performing jumping jacks with the others. The instructor notices his disinterest and lack of effort.
What the fuck is going on here? Get your shit together!
The way they are treated is more akin to a boot camp than rehab. Then again, I've never been to rehab.
You know why we still out here? Because of your bullshit!
Regardless, it shows Pennywise is not liked by anyone here, and due to standing out, is repeatedly beaten down. Twigs is also different and recognizes this in him, but is able to hide this quality of her so others don't see it. They are just so special. Afterwards, while eating, she sits with him.
Hi.
He looks about awkwardly before facing her, as if talking to the females is something he has little experience with. This is appealing, all things considered.
What the hell is even that?
They don't like you in here, do they?
A demonstration of her compassion. Twigs reaching out when everyone else keeps their distance or bullies him.
Not really.
As this is their first time talking to each other, their conversation would be stilted. However, it does give the opportunity to build their relationship from the ground up and establish what their rapport would be.
They have a thing about men and women not sitting together.
This is understandable. Romantic relations interfering with the rehabilitation process would result in two people being dependent on each other, rather than overcoming their addiction with their own strength. If this is the foundation of the relationship, it is merely codependence. Also, if this is the rule in the facility, why is no one coming to take him or her away from the table?
I know, they told me.
A rule breaker, a free spirit.
She's not like the other girls.
Considering the last time she spoke to her best friend, she is unfazed by the potential of Zadie having been caught and even killed by the villain. Maybe they'll bring it up later.
I like your tattoo. Laugh now, cry later.
Talking about something they have in common. There are plenty of directions this conversation can go by using the tattoos as a starting point. With this particular tattoo being pointed out by the characters, it is likely to have some relevance to the story moving forward. The issue is that the film is telling us her life has been hard without showing anything.
It's kind of how things have been playing out for me.
There was no need to have this line. The sentiment was well communicated through the tattoo. Then again, it may have been for the filmmakers' benefit so they know what is happening.
For me, it's more like cry now, cry later.
Life has been hard for them. The film is intent on hammering this point, yet it never relates to anything specific in their lives. Rather, it is all generalized and vague, as if they are blank slates for the viewer to insert themselves into as opposed to fully formed individuals in their own right. This is what happens when you let performers build characters. The result is often as shallow as they are.
And Rupert said to me that I had one job, and that was to create a character that was so loved and adorable and meaningful to Eric that when my character died, you'd feel like there was a big hole left in the film.
Speaking of, something incredibly common in modern media is that upon meeting, they immediately trauma dump at each other in vague terms. as if it is a substitute for building character relationships. This can be done. The interaction between Luke and Peyton in the pilot episode of One Tree Hill is a prime example. However, many writers today lack the proficiency and the finesse to tackle such a scene.
Want to hear a joke?
I don't know, is it funny?
Not really.
It's not really a joke then, is it?
Great. Go for it.
This is another example of the script not being efficient. Going from cry now, cry later, pause a couple of seconds, straight to the joke, would have highlighted Twiggs's desire to help cheer people up, and even if she cannot, would endear her to those she speaks to.
What kind of tea is hard to drink?
Cold. Cold tea is hard to drink. Not impossible, hard.
I don't know.
Reality.
Anyway, the film is nearly at the 15-minute mark and we have seen two very different Twiggses. One who is panicked and high on drugs, and whoever this is. Due to the lack of development of either one, the punchline lacks any impact.
Wow, well that's something.
Yes, indeed.
I'll keep working on it.
The film seems to be in a rush to get through the story. However, the drawback is that these character-building moments fall by the wayside. All the more so when Twigs has a lot more screen time than Shelley, yet barely anything has been done with her.
Hey, time for your group session.
Oh, here he comes like fucking clockwork.
If he's coming to get him from the group session, where is the guard who is meant to separate them? Men and women mingling is supposed to be against the rules, so why were they allowed to talk for so long? Simply, do not introduce rules you have no intention of enforcing.
What's your name?
I'm Eric.
Shelley.
Didn't ask. I'll see you around, Shelley.
In a movie screening at the rehab auditorium, they find each other and make googly eyes, following which they are all in the courtyard doing a group exercise.
If you were forced to be silent, step into the circle.
Here is a context on who's the most messed up person in the group.
If you were made to feel that anything wrong is your fault, step into the circle.
For each point, some step forward and some do not. Everyone's trauma is different after all. While everyone else takes a step here or there, two take all the steps to the center, showing they are indeed a match made in heaven because they are both suffering from their collective abuse. It is increasingly clear that this relationship of addiction and trauma is built on mutual codependence, nothing else. As the sun sets, a car makes its way through the woods, potentially towards Serenity Park.
We're pleased you found her.
From her looks and age, this is likely Twigs's mother.
We're so fond of you and your daughter.
Based on her expression, their relationship is tense, for reasons. And the family, or at least, the mother and daughter are linked to Ludendorff. Going by Zadie's fate, once one is involved with him, they are unlikely to free themselves. Meanwhile, Pennywise is cleaning his room after it had been flipped over by those picking on him.
You're right.
Hey, yeah.
Drama is afoot as both her mother and Marion approach them. This will also inform the viewer on how close they now are and their reaction to a high-stress situation. Also, wash your mouth after brushing your teeth, you savage.
Fuck, they really trashed the place, huh?
Yeah.
Their performances are the equivalent of black holes competing to see who can suck the most chemistry from the scene.
Is this me?
How did she pick up that specific drawing from the stack of papers? It may be possible she caught sight of it as she was picking them up, but more importantly, why is he drawing pictures of her naked, unbeknownst to her? That is weird, and makes him look like a creeper. He laughs because what can he say to that?
Right.
Considering their circumstances and his actions, she is taking this shockingly well. Do people usually draw her naked for her to be so comfortable with it?
These songs or poems?
Rather than addressing the fact he was drawing someone he had not even met at the time naked, they move on to the next topic.
I wouldn't call them either. It's just shit that I write.
Perhaps the film will reveal his writings in time, expanding on his artistic expression and how he sees the world, like in the '94 film. Curious how she has no qualms about going through someone else's things. And despite just meeting, they are shockingly comfortable with what the other is doing around them, even when what they are doing would raise several severe red flags.
You write beautifully. Some of this will be great set to music.
All the more reason to have it at some point in the film.
Do you play music?
Used to.
Asking questions is how two characters would be able to learn about each other in a manner where aspects of their past is revealed to them both and the viewers.
Well, maybe we could, I don't know. Maybe we could play together sometime.
With all this build-up related to them being creators, artists, musicians, and synonyms, the film has set up some display of these efforts on screen.
Maybe. Let's see how we get along.
I believe this is called flirting. Simply electric.
What are you doing in here?
Simple as this question is, there is a lot of potential because how they respond to this would reveal a lot about who they are, and what they are willing to expose about themselves at this point in time.
I don't know. I guess everything just finally caught up with me.
An acceptable answer considering they only recently met, and with what has been shown, the less spoken about it with people who are unrelated to her circumstances, the better. She does not ask him why he is here, instead touching his hands and tracing his tattoos. Despite the intimacy alluded as a result of this action, by her not taking an active interest in who he is as he has done with her, goes to show that while the film is attempting to convince us they are falling in love, due to the way they speak, it is entirely one-sided. There are also cuts on his wrists, altogether unsurprising considering the type of characters here. Though is this why he is here, or another reason altogether? This would have been a prime opportunity to share stories about each other, but is instead wasted.
For me, I feel that Eric and Shelley just have an amazing romance together.
Patient 005. Shelley, please be advised, you have a visitor.
This tender moment of nothing is interrupted by her mother and Marion arriving.
No one knows I'm here.
But they can find out, especially if Ludendorff is as influential as she knows him to be. That said, how did her mother find her first?
I'll go have a look, okay?
What good is he able to do in this situation? He won't know who they are.
I mean, it just looks like fucking lawyers to me.
That was so useful.
Wanna take a look?
What was the point in him looking out in the first place?
Who are they?
It is as if the script is incredibly thin and each action is done in the most roundabout way possible so that the runtime would go beyond the 1 hour mark.
They can't find me here. If they find me here, I'm fucked.
She reverts to the twigs at the start of the film, fearing for her life, though she is severely underestimating how easy it actually was to find her because if she is registered here and was sent as a result of a court hearing, these records are documented and available to the public, so finding her would be quite simple. All the more so because one of their men saw her getting arrested.
Her room is right this way.
Always good to note the direction he is guiding them in is indeed towards the intended location.
I've got to get out of here. They can't find me here.
Her level of panic is consistent with the behavior seen at the start of the film.
Fuck!
Language!
Come with me.
As he has been here a lot longer, it makes sense he would know the ins and outs of the facility and where best to go if they need to hide.
Could you give me a location update on patient 005?
If they are able to keep tabs on where the patients are at all times, then it would be impossible to hide. So what is his plan?
You see those windows up there? Yeah. They'll take you out to the Ark.
Escaping is a plan. However, wouldn't that just put her in more trouble? Granted, the alternative is going off to her death, but he doesn't know that. We do. And so this action only makes sense if we are implanting our information onto Pennywise in order to justify his actions.
Oh, wait. We gotta get the tag off.
He makes it as difficult as possible for them to find her. But this facility is remote and heavily guarded, so has precautions in case of a breakout.
Can you pick up your signal?
The film attempts to build up some tension as Marion and the mother get close. To escape cannot possibly be as easy as cutting off the tracker, so this scene is broken. The situation the writers have placed the characters in is logistically unwinnable. If they get away, it is only because the writer led them without any regard as to how it makes sense in the context of the scene they were in.
What are you doing?
Fuck this place. I'm rehabilitated.
They just met. Her question is good. His actions make no sense. Why does he think life would be better with her? He knows nothing about her besides her name and that she too is a junkie. Worry not, because getting away was incredibly simple as they climb over the fence and run through the woods to Joy Division's disorder. The remoteness of the center, the level of security, and the barriers to freedom are not logical when considering how easy it was for them to escape. He needs way more than his shirt to climb over the barbed wire without injury. But hey, movie has to happen. Meanwhile, her mother is happy that she got away, indicating she is disgruntled with Ludendorff and his companions. This is an interesting development and would be worth following, provided the film chooses to leverage it in any meaningful way. No one is even chasing them. What is the point in having all that security? Would the police be notified? Or will they be allowed to roam free without consequence from the perspective of the laws they have broken to wind up there in the first place? What luck! A truck appears in the middle of the woods to take them away.
Who were those people?
A former life.
Considering he risked his freedom to save her, the least she could do is give him an honest answer instead of deflecting. Maybe she just likes the attention. Also, there is something very wrong with the shot where the trees look fake and have been poorly composited in during post-production.
Right. Got one of those?
I bet you do.
Again, lip service is given to the idea of their past, without committing to any one story. They regularly mention the great tragedy that is their lives, but never say anything meaningful.
But he said to me that my job in the film would be to create a character that is so warm and so lovable that when Shelley dies, it just feels like there's a huge hole in the movie.
They then find themselves in generic US City 23.
The film is set in a modern city, but I wanted a world that felt timeless in a way.
Still wearing the clothes from the facility. Are they on any watch list for law enforcement to look out for? She in particular is running away from her sentence after all. But pretending a world exists outside the characters and story would get in the way of what the filmmakers want to do, so it is completely ignored.
And then it cuts completely differently to Park Avenue in not New York, because we're not set in any American city, but in that vein of you're in one of the penthouses looking over the park.
They find themselves at the apartment she was at during the start of the film.
Jesus, this is crazy.
It's my friend's place.
The place has been cleaned up and plastic covers everything. How much time has passed since? According to the film, it is simultaneously long and short based on which would serve the film best at any point in time. Also, the villains know she escaped, so why is no one stationed outside in case she returns?
He lives in Antigua. Lets me crash here sometimes.
Well, ain't he generous? Betting the film will never introduce nor bring him up in a conversation again. An apartment was needed, and so it was conjured for the purposes of the film regardless of the logic. As her friend is clearly well off, her family must be as well. So what led her to the point of indulging in copious amounts of drugs? Was it Ludendorff and her family's association with him, or something greater?
So, what now?
Good to know he had no plan beyond escaping. Was it to spend the rest of his time with her? If so, why? Is there anything he wants? There is a profound lack of agency in him to the point he needs someone else to tell him what to want and do.
You know, you don't have to stay. Maybe it's safer if you don't.
Maybe? Just maybe. Considering her reaction upon seeing those who were after her, if she has a conscience, she should be telling him to leave, though Pennywise having the constitution of a rescued puppy would make it unlikely for him to follow this command.
I want to stay.
Shocking.
Okay, well then, we'll hide out here for a while.
Ludendorff and his associates already know about this place. Why stay somewhere she knows the villains are aware of and has already found her in? It's like she's desperate to be caught.
And then what?
Not once, so far, has he displayed a single thought of his own.
We'll hide somewhere else.
The same goes for her, vacuous shell of a human being.
Just figure it out.
With her being wanted by the villain, she is taking this quite well when she had a mental breakdown when she last saw them, while the bunny rabbit saved her.
Good plan.
It is a good plan.
This film is allergic to good dialogue.
You stink, dude.
Oh, sorry. Do you mind if I use the shower?
This film is also afraid of sincerity, as if it is worried taking things seriously would not be cool, and needs to make a joke to undercut the moment. Possible under a skilled writer, but when mimicking those who are better, one misunderstands when to do such things, leaving the scene more awkward as a result.
Not yet.
They then have the sex. While in the bathtub, they talk.
Pretty good.
This could be the bath or bedroom fun.
What's the first thing you liked about me when you saw me?
Let's take this in steps. First, this is a line by Twigs herself.
Twigs and Bill came up with most of the bath scene of like Twigs, you know, I remember her saying like, the most romantic thing boys ever say to me, or I want to say to boys, like, what's the first thing you liked about me? And that was really the gestation of that scene. So like,
this creates a disconnect between who Shelley and Twigs are. If the actor and character are interchangeable, she is simply being herself under the guise of a performance. The phrasing of the question itself implies the onlooker liked her straight from the off, as if she expects to be liked right away. Sounds pretty self-absorbed. When with him, she is only interested in topics related to her, as she is yet to ask him about his life, while he is asking about her, wanting to get to know her better.
There's like an aura about you.
Pretty sure that was the meth evaporating from her body.
It feels powerful.
I believe the colloquial term for this is
What's the first thing you liked about me?
It's only fair he gets to ask as well.
I thought that you were quite brilliantly broken.
There is something kind of beautifully broken about Eric.
Films need to get to the point where romanticizing destructive human behavior is a thing of the past. The more they talk, it is increasingly clear that they are not in love with each other. Rather, they are each other's highs.
You are.
So broken, so perfect.
What's the worst thing you've ever done?
Potentially setting up something meaningful in any other context, but we must remember what film this is.
I once escaped rehab with a complete fucking degenerate.
Darling, you're both degenerates. Yes, this is a joke, haha, but in nearly 25 minutes, the character work has been appalling. As if saying they had a terrible life is a shortcut to character.
Probably the best thing I've ever done.
Considering how passive and without agency he is, this is likely true.
Wait, I just remembered something.
Is it a stash of drugs?
A secret stash here?
I plant seeds? I can't explain it.
Those are the ones?
Lamb of God.
So begins the romance of the century. Getting high and mixing alcohol is naturally a good idea. When one has been clean for a while and they relapse, taking the amount they used to is likely to result in an overdose because the body is no longer acclimated to those doses anymore. Though here's hoping for a faster end to this film.
Stop looking at me, I'll poke your eye.
I believe this is another example of the two of them flirting.
You don't need it. You've got me now.
The thought of her looking after a wet towel is frightening, let alone another human being. The sentiment attached to the words are precious, claiming she would always be there, and he could trust her. But she is yet to trust him with anything meaningful while he has given her his soul.
Their chemistry is really strong together, which the film needed, because without that strong chemistry, why would he go on this kind of warpath to bring her back? He had to care so deeply about her, and she had to make such an impression on him and the audience, which she does.
They play around, try different clothes, engage in the sex, and move on to the rooftop.
How many people have you loved? Like, seriously loved?
They have known each other for 2 days, though time is nebulous here. Also, love is complicated, and there are many forms of it. Each will only make sense in the context of each individual relationship. What they have is indulgence in carnal satisfaction.
Me neither.
A shocking revelation, though I can absolutely believe it in her case.
Promise me something.
What?
She is yet to address the phone, the trouble she is in, Zadie, nor any of the risk related to being with her.
If I'm ever hard to love, try to love me harder.
There is a scenario where this kind of request can work, such as in the final episode of The Haunting of Hill House, during the conversation between Shelley and her husband. It works because there is a lot of context, backstory, character development, and progression to bring her to that point, unlike here. Going back inside, they have sex. Asleep after more sex. The film shows a drawing of a woman sinking into the abyss, foreshadowing the tragedy of their future, perhaps?
There's an edge to it as well.
Next up, Zadie's body is found by the police.
Arian, you have a problem.
The police are on their payroll, and so it was a good move by Zadie to not go to them because the video may have been intercepted before getting to the right people. As more time passes, Zadie is proving a better character than Twigs, despite being dead for nearly 15 minutes. How often are those killed by Ludendorff found like this? Is this a rare mistake that happens occasionally through the centuries? Based on how they operate, it would not be surprising if this is far more common than the film would have us believe. Ludendorff, meanwhile, is enjoying a private performance of the young woman from the party.
Call for you, Mr. Rogue.
Yes?
This is an interruption he is not all too fond of, hinting to a humanity in him where he cares for the arts, even if his manner of living is heinous.
They found Zadie's body.
Here I thought there was nothing left to find.
If usually they are so thorough as to not leave a body behind, What made Zadie so different? Also, are there going to be any repercussions directed towards them because of this discovery, or is it not going to be addressed at all?
It's a setback, but we're close on one of the others.
A setback of their own making because they do have a method of getting rid of bodies effectively. Then again, the villains are their own worst enemy. How did they gain prominence with such incompetency?
If this video gets out, you know what it'll do to me.
What would it do? Why was a video allowed to be made in the first place? Why was it not confiscated after said event took place? Centuries alive and it is all going to crumble due to a video he knew about because he was in it and not doing anything about it.
I find this tiresome, Marion. This running around.
Running around and frustration in others caused by their own ineptitude. His in particular, as he was in the video.
I can feel you sweating through the phone.
Sure, why not?
This ends here.
With that, he goes back to enjoying the performance.
When you meet the devil, they're wildly seductive and charismatic and offer you everything you want. They're not like evil and you know, and that was really where Danny and I found that character needed to exist.
An unspecified amount of time later, Twigs and Pennywise go on a road trip with a couple of druggies they hang out with to take drugs and have fun, all set to thin flesh by traitors.
You know, they were sitting and smoking weed and swimming in the lake and...
What are you reading?
Rimbaud?
Not for 1 second will you ever convince me she reads Arthur Rimbaud. You'll have a better chance of convincing me London is not a hellhole.
Should I read you some?
Yeah.
Rimbaud's poetry is prominent in the comic, yet much in the same way many new installments of classic franchises are constructed, this is simply a reference with no meaning behind it. Its function is to create nostalgia rather than utilize it in a way that is meaningful in the current media. In short, it's hollow.
I don't want it to end.
Doesn't have to.
If these words were said by actual characters, there would be far more weight behind them as a result.
Could be living like this all the fucking time.
Literally untrue. It's not feasible unless they go hard into the drugs, sex and parties till they completely burn out together instead of fading away. Returning to the city, they find themselves in Angel Investigations, reminding me of a much better show. Pennywise plays music and Twigs is singing, allegedly. Is this something they wrote together, or are they simply jamming? Context indicates Pennywise suggested they play something together, and now they are. She stops. This could be related to the reason she hinted at during their time in the facility.
Why'd you stop? That was beautiful.
Was it? Anyway, 30 minutes have passed and this film has the audacity to call itself The Crow. The story has been languishing in narrative limbo. And for what? For Pennywise to continually ask questions of Twigs? Only for her to reveal fuck all about herself? Besides taking drugs, liking music and orgasming repeatedly, what do they know about each other?
Why don't you play?
No.
And a woman just being like a kind of a silhouette. There's no character to that woman in the original Shelley. She's not there. You know, to me, this film doesn't work without us falling in love with Twigs.
The 94 film starts with her death, yet it clearly communicates who she is, what she cares about, how she treats people, her sense of justice, how passionately she loved, and the sheer impact she had on others for the better. A shining beacon of a woman in a world intent on burning itself to the ground. This film has spent the opening 30 minutes following Twigs and what is established. She is selfish, does not care for her friends, used to like music, takes copious amounts of drugs and likes to come repeatedly. You couldn't make a more shallow character if you tried. And considering Rebel Moon came out this same year, that's saying something.
No, we both know you're better at this than me.
If he says so. While playing, she has a PTSD flashback to what happened in her past, and Ludendorff was a part of it. The fact it was shown through a different medium hints that this was part of the video sent by Zadie. This recording actively shows him in it, so why was any of this allowed to be recorded at all? It is difficult to miss a phone recording when everyone is looking directly at it. The logical conclusion is that with the exception of Zadie, everyone in this film is dumb.
I can't do this right now.
To be fair, she can't do it at any point, unless it's drugs or sex.
Okay. You're alright. What's going on?
He asked what is bothering her multiple times and the consistency with which she refuses to tell him anything would suggest she is either going to deflect, ignore, or shut down the question altogether.
Can we just go out for a bit?
I'm shocked. They walk along a bridge, and what are the chances they talk about jumping off of it while trying to make it sound romantic?
I haven't played piano for a while.
It could be that Twigs is finally going to open up to Pennywise.
Still my beating
I loved playing.
Baby steps, but it is something.
It was my whole life, but my mum took it and twisted it all.
Looking at the information the film has given, something can be constructed. She liked to play the piano. Her mother is deep within Ludendorff's sphere of influence, and he enjoys listening to talented pianists. She may have played for him often, and led to the moment the video is depicting, similar to the young woman at the start.
Pushed me into performing at places I was too young to be at.
How young? Because the younger it is, the more heinous the mother is. It could be the guilt related to pushing Twigs to be in these situations that made her happy to know she escaped the facility earlier.
Didn't want to play for any of them.
More information is given. However, due to a lack of specifics, the onus is still on the viewer to create her backstory in the writer's stead.
I saw things. I shouldn't have seen any of it.
What did she see? How long was she a part of the organization? Was only one of those instances recorded? If so, what made this moment so special as to warrant recording? Why was it allowed to be recorded at all? Is she taking drugs to cope with these experiences? So many questions, and I am certain we get the answer to none of them.
I hurt people.
She seems so broken up about it.
And I know.
It's okay.
It's not okay.
Likely the most accurate thing she has said so far. Nothing about this is okay. And not warning him of the danger in being around her is confounding. Also, what the fuck is Pennywise wearing? Elton John is exactly who I should be thinking of when I'm watching The Crow. Fucking hell.
What did you do?
I can't tell you.
And we're back to normal. It only took half an hour to get to it, but it is something.
If you knew, you'd leave me.
Based on his behavior so far, it's likely he'll follow her till the ends of the earth regardless of what she did as long as she smiles at him regularly. Also, her best friend is missing, and some dangerous people are after her. By hiding this, she is putting his life in danger because she doesn't want him to leave her.
Filthy harlot!
And if you left me, I'd die.
The impact of Twilight is truly everlasting.
If I left you, I'd already be dead.
To be generous, let's call this foreshadowing.
I just want to start over.
Perhaps if she decided to, at any point, tell him the truth, it might help.
No, why don't we?
He would follow her regardless of her sins, but let's imagine for a moment that these are characters and have a brain cell. Were he to know the truth about what happened and who is hunting her, would he stay?
Where would we go?
Fucking anywhere.
There is such a thing as living in the moment, but things have to be figured out eventually. Puppy love and orgasms can only feed them for so long.
Anywhere's better than this fucking place.
What's wrong here? And if they leave, where would they go? Another city? A small town? A rural village? Where do they want to live?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Their naivety is staggering. These aren't adults. These are teens with no understanding of the world and no more foresight than their next high. Nothing about this relationship should be admired, in any way, shape or form. It is dripping with toxicity.
So you're saying, if I jumped, you'd jump with me?
Fucking kill me. This film tries to portray a whirlwind romance similar to Romeo and Juliet. However, unlike these morons, Romeo and Juliet were actual teenagers and their deaths were needless, coming as a result of wanting to be free of their familial expectations. Highlighting the rivalry would only hurt themselves in the long run, not because dying together in itself was the romantic ending in their mind.
Of course I would.
I'm willing to put money on the idea he would jump off the bridge if she merely asked him to.
Do you think angsty teens would build little shrines for us?
These two needs to be forgotten, never to be thought of again, and humanity is worse off for this film existing.
Yeah, they'd be lining up to leave cigarettes and whiskey.
Edgy the hedgy over here.
No.
No?
Of course she says no.
She's a woman.
What he said was dumb, but looking at her behavior through the film, why expect her to agree with him on anything?
Lilies.
Was that a Wicked Prayer reference? No. These guys probably don't even know that film exists.
Sea of white lilies.
Alright, lilies it is.
Naturally, as is his character, he accepts the idea of the lilies without objection.
These are the types of men who get cheated on.
Moving on, they are in a club, doing the disco while a man is making his way over. Pennywise and Twigs are kissing, as usual. Perhaps it's the filmmakers compensating for character. If they kiss enough times, they would be seen as a convincing couple. Considering the only other named character that has not yet been introduced is Dom, it is likely him, and he may be here because he managed to track down Twigs, potentially to warn her about Ludendorff and let her know about Zadie. Who is Pennywise hugging? Is he going to be relevant to the story? We are nearly a third of the way in and new characters are still being introduced. Shocking that it is water instead of alcohol. There's wanting to do things for the one you love and extreme commitment issues. It is good to see her interact with someone from her former life, even if he was the one that found her and not the other way around.
Zadie's dead. They're gonna come for us, Shelley. We need to leave town now.
As they, her in particular, know what happens to the people around Ludendorff, she should not be surprised. Dom seems a good man so far, taking the time to track her down, warn her, and putting himself at risk in the process. That makes Zadie, Dom, and Pennywise, who all care deeply for Twigs, and it is unfathomable why. Is she under the illusion that if she ignores her past long enough, it would cease to exist and she would be free to live her life? Dom is warning her about the danger she knows she is in, and she ignores him. It's like she wants to die. Why even ask anymore? It's not like he's going to get an answer. At this point, having him continually ask questions is nothing short of frustrating. Can't fault him for trying. Now that the truth is finally going to be explained, she is likely going to die. It's not like she spent an unspecified number of days with him or anything.
I'll tell you everything. Let's get back to your place.
He has a place? Since when? How? For how long? Where? They leave the club and his place happens to be Angel Investigations. Why are there so many mannequins here? Is it his place or are they squatting? Regardless, getting on the elevator, they make out. Because that is a substitute for character. There is no relationship built, nor an emotional connection between them. It is all focused on the carnal aspects. They are no different than fuck buddies. Also, there was something urgent she needed to tell him about her old friend finding her, and prompting them to be here in the first place. But that gets in the way of the vigorous grinding against each other. She walks in ahead of him, and he locks the gates. If the men were already in the apartment, how did they grab Twigs without her making a sound? Only to whimper when Pennywise saw her. The world and what is shown through the camera exist independently of each other, as if nothing happens unless it is explicitly shown through the camera. Is this death going to be as brutal as the original? It's 2024. Of course not. This film thinks it's more edgy than it actually is. Whereas the original had the balls to go places where few films would even dare, and succeeded. Everything about this film is inferior. Also, her hands are free. Why isn't she trying to get the bag off of her instead of trying to pull the henchman's hand away? Even Terrified did this better. While the mechanics of how we got to this point is brain dead, Pennywise being killed is a tragedy because he was a little pup in love, who followed the first person to bother smiling at him, who did not tell him the truth at any point despite asking her repeatedly. Following their deaths, he finds himself underwater.
I think that we needed to figure out their dynamic and like how are we going to be able to in such a short amount of time tell this love story that never gets to flourish, as well as Shelley having this very, secret or baggage that she's carrying.
Looking down, Twigs continues to sink, and he is unable to reach her no matter how hard he swims, as if she is pulled into the depths of hell. Surfacing, he is in an unfamiliar place. An approaching dog distracts him, and leads his gaze to a man standing by a door and walking beyond. Following him, Pennywise finds himself at Crow Station, which seems to be a purgatory of sorts. 40 minutes in and the film shows another crow.
Do we really need a crow in that background? And then why do we have to have that? It's like we made a very frugal movie that I hope stands up in the IMAX cinema.
Where am I? What is this place?
Considering he already attempted suicide and heaven and hell are real, wouldn't he have some idea of where this is? Where did he go last time? This is something even Constantine established early on, but it is likely this film will not.
You'd think they'd come up with something better, wouldn't you?
Then what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Is he talking about the location or being killed by plastic bags?
But you know, they don't expect us to linger.
A train station is not a place people linger in and is a transitionary point in a journey. The imagery of this is logical, and a potential reference to the original comic. Then again, it all depends on how this film utilizes it.
How long we stay here is entirely up to you.
It seems this is a hub world Pennywise can return to periodically through his revenge mission, like Firelink Shrine. Looking up, it is revealed this space spans endlessly.
What is happening to me?
Despite the great number of questions he asks, rarely does he ever seem to get an answer. He is perpetually confused and is left reacting to things without ever making a decision of his own.
People once believed when someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead.
40 minutes into the film and the lore of the story is brought up, not like it's important or anything. The 94 film does this in the opening minutes. Here, it is an afterthought, and is addressed out of obligation rather than being a part of the story.
But sometimes something so bad happens that the terrible sadness is carried with it.
To have these lines spoken to the character may have worked in theory, provided it is in the conversation organically. Here, it is forced for the sake of exposition, to get it out swiftly so the filmmakers can carry on uninterrupted by the source material it is actively torching.
And the soul cannot rest.
What are you talking about?
Another example of characters talking at each other. This mimics a conversation as two characters are present, but it is not because they are talking at each other while not acknowledging each other's points.
The crow will guide you to put the wrong things right.
A bit late, but the film finally starts. A symptom of modern Western storytelling where it takes ages for the story to progress, lingering instead in an ever-meandering prologue.
What do you mean?
Pennywise is pathetic, the complete opposite of Eric, making him a completely unrelated character who happens to take on the powers of the crow like in the sequels. Brandon Lee's presence is a challenge to match, so this iteration is the equivalent of Pete Davidson being a SoundCloud rapper with the emotional stability of diarrhea.
Oh, fuck this. This isn't real. You stay the fuck away from me!
A reaction to be expected from anyone in this situation, though considering the setting and an individual guiding him along the way, a certain film comes to mind, The Matrix Revolutions.
There's nothing there but here.
Confirming the purgatory-esque nature of this dimension.
It's all just a fucking nightmare.
The main difference is that The Matrix takes place in a subway station, providing a lot of flexibility when hiding this location's cyclical nature. The train station is a wide open space. So how does this work? Would he see him simultaneously in front of and behind him? Who knows?
This is just a fucking nightmare.
Then go wake up.
Pushing him over in slow motion, he falls into a puddle and wakes up in the world of the living. Standing, he looks for
Shelley?
Unable to find her, he collapses onto a chair and looks to an unfinished tattoo. A variation of the one on Twigs. Only his says. When did he start getting it in the first place? How long were they out of the facility? The flashback to the tattoo man from the club is set at an undefined point in time in the past. The flashes of additional scenes give the impression a lot more footage for this film was left on the cutting room floor. With how empty this film is, it is an impressive feat.
What am I looking for exactly?
A cell phone.
The henchman and Marion were here earlier. Why not take the opportunity to search the area and then leave, instead of just leaving? Did she come with the murderman and had to send the searchman later? A singular man, no less. This phone is both important and irrelevant to the villains.
You can come out, boy.
How did he know he was there?
Who are you? I'm a cop.
Getting Pennywise to drop his guard to potentially use him to find the phone is a good idea.
Drop that, drop that. Yeah.
Being cooperative as he is, it would be to his benefit to learn what Pennywise knows before doing anything else.
Listen, I think I'm going crazy. I don't know what's real or not anymore.
Being in Crow Station after being strangled and returning to the land of the living can be a disorienting experience.
I just think something really bad has happened with my girl.
Why shoot him without asking any questions? In his disoriented state, he would have told the policeman everything he knows. Instead, he just shoots Pennywise. Twigs was desperate to die, and the villains are desperate to lose. Hi, Miss Zadie. The powers of the crow activate and they fight. In addition to punching and stabbing each other, they use the objects in the location to gain the upper hand. It is not graceful, though does not need to be as it communicates the disorientation experienced by them. The camera is steady and the editing is calm so their actions are visible all the way through. a golden sprinkle in a sewer of turds. Feeling overwhelmed by having killed someone, he takes a moment before moving and resetting his bone, prompting the healing factor to activate. It is appropriately gruesome and the camera does not shy away from it, finally making use of that R rating. As if this is what the filmmakers wanted to make as a result of the attention to detail in the gore effects. Yet they spent 40 minutes trying to build a romance. Had they started from Shelley's death like the original, it may have been better for this film, not to mention it would only be an hour long. Walking through the streets, he finds himself at the bridge again. The environment being dark and rainy is good, embracing itself and slowly realizing it is indeed the Crow. Moments like this evoke the source material, however they are so few and far between they may as well not be here. At the bridge he sees
Shelley?
She jumps off and true to his word he follows after her.
She's dead, isn't she?
We're both dead. I'm afraid so.
The reality of the situation is sinking in.
What are you? Some kind of angel?
A natural assumption considering everything.
Do I look like an angel?
It's not something to scoff at, it is a legitimate question because dying and being in purgatory is not exactly common. With how chatty he was earlier, he is annoyingly coy now. Then again, it's not like anyone in this film answers his question, so why expect any different?
I don't understand. Why am I here and she isn't?
Will this question be answered?
You're not gonna like the answer.
Of course not.
Just tell me.
Surprisingly, he is not backing down. Character growth, perhaps?
Don't give me hope. She's on her way down to a place far worse than this.
Hell, there's no need to elongate the lines unnecessarily to make it sound more profound. A practice common in modern media where lines seem grand and significant when being efficient and accurate to the character is far more important.
You said I can make the wrong things right. What does that mean?
Due to actually getting answers to his questions, this is the official exposition scene where everything related to the functionality of the powers are made clear. At least clearer.
The one who killed you is not supposed to be in your world.
Technically, the one who gave the order is not meant to be alive, but this informs Pennywise and reminds the audience of what Ludendorff is, or at least alludes to it.
They made a deal with the devil to gain eternal life by sending the innocent to hell.
Vincent Rogue made a deal with the devil to send others to hell so he doesn't have to. He has lived for centuries. He is untouchable power that exists within our society.
The information provided by Ludendorff and Croman are the same, meaning at least some of what he told Zadie was true.
That's not balance.
It kind of is. It's not good, life for a life and all that, but what does he mean by balance? Ludendorff living so long because of this ritual, the innocents sent to hell, or a combination of them?
Kill them. Kill them all.
A simple requirement, however, if Ludendorff is the main culprit, and is the one breaking the laws of nature, why is Croman telling him to kill everyone?
And you get your lives back.
You're saying I can get her back?
Yeah.
Why? Would all who have been sacrificed get their lives back, or only these two? If she is dead, why is she not in hell? What is Croman's function? Is he a ferryman? Is he the spirit of the Crow? Does he have the power and authority to bring back souls condemned to hell? Who knows?
Kill the ones who killed you, and you will get her back.
In that case, could either one of them be the Crow? If so, why was it him and not her? Neither is necessarily a good person, and so they would both be condemned to hell. So was it a simple coin flip? How is all this working? This film has made things more complicated and nonsensical simultaneously.
I was up there. I got shot.
And it taught you something, didn't it?
The film now is reiterating what has already been shown minutes ago. That said,
What I can heal. I can't die.
May as well beat the dead horse a few more times.
Your body? No. Feel pain? Yes.
An additional stipulation has been added.
If your love remains pure, you cannot die.
This line is why Twigs didn't tell him anything about her past, so later on he would falter in his love, lose his power and be prone to death. Twigs is an object to facilitate the mechanics of this film. She is beholden to the necessities of the plot above all else. It's ironic, in wanting to flesh out Shelley as a character, all they managed is reducing her to a prop.
How am I supposed to trust you?
Do you have another choice?
We're getting all the cliches in this film. We're not so different, you and I will likely appear at some point.
Are you ready?
Throwing him off the platform and into a puddle below, he is in the land of the living. Again.
Eric, what the fuck? Where have you been?
the film reintroduces Tattoo Man.
Everyone thought she was dead.
How much time has passed between their death and this moment? How widespread is the information about his death?
Everyone was right. Very funny, just come inside.
At least he's honest.
I need your help, man. What do you need?
This is the first time he is speaking in the film, but he is proving to be an absolute bro, willing to help, no questions asked.
I need a gun. A gun.
Tattoo Man is taken aback by this request, naturally so, as this is unlike Pennywise.
Eric, what are you gonna do with it?
Despite his reluctance, upon seeing the puppy dog look on his face, he acquiesces and helps his friend. He has been in the film less than 3 minutes total and is already among Zadie and Dom in being a good man. Coming to Twiggs' funeral, some time has passed since their deaths. Something neat is that there is a crow present, indicating Pennywise is nearby because the crow is meant to lead the way to the people he must find. Her mother walks out and enters her car to find Pennywise.
I'm a friend of your daughter's. We need to talk.
While they never met, he saw her when he scoped out the visitors in the facility, and so seeing her in the funeral would allow him to connect the dots, leading him to believe this is her mother. But how did he know which car was hers? Her home has multiple portraits of her, implying she may have been a model in the past.
Like Sophia's apartment. She was a model in our story. She's got like Helmut Newton style massive portraits of her all around the walls. One of them is down there. We had to do a photo shoot of the actress as if she was a Vogue cover model.
Which may have led to meeting Ludendorff, or did he use his influence to raise her stock as a model, leaving her to owe him and surrender Twiggs?
Who was after her? Why did you come for her that day?
While he is adept at asking questions, and is becoming more assertive on occasion, it is best to let her answer before moving on. Makes it easy to deal with if torture is needed.
I saw you there with the people who killed her.
Starting with this information would help make any denial on her part impossible from his point of view, though the viewer knows she is rooting for Twiggs to escape in the facility.
What are you talking about? It was an overdose.
This is see the context on the scope of Ludendorff's organization, able to falsify records to suit their narrative to continue operating in the shadows, assuming they are actually competent, or she is in denial so she can endure interacting with the organization further. Who knows?
How would you know?
Because I was there.
Being upfront is to his benefit as it allows him to add some intimidation to the conversation for additional information, provided he plays his cards right.
You don't understand who you're dealing with.
While he is more assertive, he is still being ignored. Some things never change.
I loved her. I need to know who these people are.
The basis of this love is hideous, though it is believable he loved her. Her loving him, on the other hand, is debatable at best.
Because I'm gonna kill them. Every single one of them. And I'm gonna bring her back.
Considering her actions, this is far more than she deserves. Zadie, on the other hand.
She's not coming back.
She knows Ludendorff and the organization well, so must know something of his abilities, which could lead to believing in the possibility of her return. Alternatively, this is her not wanting to afford herself hope of seeing her daughter again to make amends and heal their relationship.
My baby's gone. She's gone. She's not coming back.
The combination of guilt for putting her daughter in this situation, her inability to protect her, and the grief from her death would be overwhelming, causing her to break down as shown here. Meanwhile, he goes to Twiggs' room and starts exploring. Noticing skid marks on the floor, he activates detective mode. With how apparent those marks are, how did no one else find the pictures of her, Zadie and Dom? There is also an ID card of her related to Ludendorff's company. What does that company do? Why were these items hidden at all? Me by Gary Newman plays as the crow guides him to his target at Ludendorff's company. He walks past a car whose driver catches his attention. What was his plan? Shoot everything in the building till he got to his target? Sneak in to look for information? While it makes sense for him to find certain characters, him coming across the man in the car as opposed to searching for any of them in the building itself is a missed opportunity. He takes having a gun pointed at him well, as if this is a situation he often finds himself in, or it is a result of bad direction.
I fucking killed you.
Yes, we did.
Quite the lukewarm reaction compared to 94, as if he is aware of the supernatural powers. Compared to the 94 film where the performances combined with the atmosphere dripping off of the screen allows for the reuniting of the killer and victim to be potent in its execution, here it is the equivalent of bumping into someone on the street.
Don't move. Turn it off.
Pennywise is trying, conveying the fact this is his first time doing something like this through his performance alone. Eric, though, he is not.
I want names of all the people that you work for.
Did he come hoping to run into someone he recognized? If so, it's not simply a matter of lazy writing, but also a knock to his intelligence, low as it is. How has he managed to survive for so long when he behaves in such nonsensical ways? Does he suspect Pennywise does not have it in him to shoot him? Does he think he is fast enough to turn the tables from such a compromised position? Pennywise is panicking due to the turn of events, either from having killed another man or his absolute stupidity. While recovering, the dead man's phone pings with new messages. Curious timing. What if he got the text before discovery, or after he left the car, or if it was on silent? Despite the crow being in place where many coincidences can be negated, the writers continue to take shortcuts, almost as if they wasted 40 minutes trying to build up twigs instead. Luckily, the messages are sent in a way anyone can read them even without unlocking the phone. Why is it done this way? Why not call instead? Anyway, Marion walks out the building, the exact person he is looking for. There is less than 50 minutes left, so the film has to enter its speedrunning phase. Walking in front of the vehicle, he shoots, gets hit by it, and the action sequence begins. A significantly worse version of similar fights from better movies. Neither as dynamic as Deadpool, nor as well presented and choreographed as The Raid 2. Trying to reach out for Marion before taking care of the bodyguards proves to be his undoing, as he is shot repeatedly and tossed out of the car, getting run over by a truck. This moment encapsulates a lot of what is wrong with this film. Everything exists in isolation from each other. Ordinarily, if a truck ran over someone that got tossed out of a car, there is a good chance the driver and even a few others would stop. Here, all the vehicles continue to drive as if nothing happened. But it's brutal and cool, and that's what's important. Next up, Ludendorff has the young woman drive him to Twiggs' mother.
Hello, Sophia.
Why is she driving him? Does she work for him exclusively now? Does he operate by poaching young women and grooming them to be sacrifices for his life force?
I'm sorry it's been so long, truly.
How long? She was with Marion recently, so is still close to the organization but not enough to be close to him. Does she not want to be close to him? Or is it a mutual parting after having gotten what they wanted from each other?
My condolences. Shirley was such a special girl.
While things are amicable, her expression suggests this is the last thing she wants to happen right now. She remains quiet, perhaps in an effort to remain safe and let him reveal why he is here.
I heard you had a visitor. What did he want?
How does he know Pennywise was here? Does he have people keeping tabs on her? If so, with so many resources, how was he not able to find Dom nor Twiggs with ease? He is simultaneously a looming threat, aware of everyone around him, and unable to find his victims.
He wants to kill you.
Does she know about his ability? Or simply that he is incredibly influential and has the means to cover up any death he desires?
Anger. First impulse.
It's not anger.
What is it then?
This may be the quickest exchange of lines between two characters in the entire film. Worth mention because interactions in other scenes lack energy, are stilted and staggered with needless elongated pauses.
Love.
Better have the characters state the point of the film because everything leading to this point was so haphazard and nonsensical this may have been lost in translation.
Loved her so much, he told me he was going to bring her back.
Does she believe this? Is she aware of the supernatural aspects surrounding her?
What was that?
Why is he surprised? Is this the first time in the near 300 or 400 years of his life he has encountered something like this? Doesn't he have contingencies in case something like this happens? After the centuries he has been killing people, and Crowman declaring his existence in the world is something wrong? Why has he not sent other restless spirits? Is this the first time in Ludendorff's long life two people have loved each other this much? If so, the bar is low, and considering the emotion expressed by Zadie, she is a far better candidate for this task.
He thinks if he kills you, he'll be able to bring her back from the dead.
The dialogue in this film is anti-writing. If these lines were absent, leaving only his reaction, it would have been enough to communicate the point and what may be running through his mind.
Oh, Shelley, so many times you needed me, and I was never there.
Once again, the grief is boiling over, perhaps reminding her of the times when she had the opportunity to help, wishing she did things differently. A decent character arc for someone to go through.
Stop it. She's gone. You traded her for a better life.
Traded her how? Her life itself, her future aspirations, or something else entirely? Also, when did this happen? Also, is her life now a result of this trade? Which, if so, would make it all the more painful considering she is surrounded by the reminders of her sacrifice.
It took a lot of courage.
Does he consider her an asset he wants on his side, or a loose end he is looking for an excuse to get rid of?
What you gave me was not a gift, it was a curse.
With her daughter dead and losing who she cared for most, she stands up to him. However, as this is the first time they are interacting, it does not have as great of an impact as it should. If they had prior interactions, it would give the viewer an opportunity to see a shift in the character as a result of the film's events.
I would rather have died.
What was her situation when she made such an extreme deal? Was it vanity where she wanted more success? Or were they struggling and this opened doors that led them to have a better life? She has the potential of an interesting character, if only effort was put into developing her into something worthwhile.
Well, then you should go be with her.
Brief as her presence was, there were no more than flashes of character, which, at this point, is the hallmark of this film.
Rupert had this incredible vision for what he wanted for the film.
You rank, arrogant amateur.
As he walks by, she falls to her death. But what took her so long to do this? Zadie's death was near instantaneous. Or do the possessed mind find it difficult to open doors? Also, how did the mechanics of the spell work here? Does the spell simply prompt the death without considering the purity of the soul? Pianist Girl is shocked, but again, why is she driving him? Perhaps this is the inception of the journey taken by a similar character to Twigs, where the film shows both the start and end of this life, foreshadowing her fate through Twigs. Unfortunately, she is a prop.
Baron, he has been sent back.
The matter-of-fact way he is treating this suggests his conversation with Sophia was to confirm his suspicions rather than learn anything new. How it all happened lacks finesse and ability, but the purpose of this visit was made clear, even if a lot was left unexplored.
The power to escape death exists within him. Bring him to me.
Is Ludendorff still prone to death by ordinary means? If so, would a car crash or a nasty cold theoretically kill him? Or would he be able to heal by sacrificing a soul? Also, how many supernatural abilities, if any, has he absorbed so far with his ability? If he has, what are his other abilities? Coming to where Dom is hiding, Pennywise nabs him. Why is no one from the organization here? Was the one henchman the only one who got the address?
I saw you in the club. You brought them to us.
A logical assumption, as Twigs never told him about Dom, about what she was involved in, nor who he was when Pennywise asked her about it.
Dude, no, I was just trying to get her out. I was just trying to help her get away, man.
He is understandably panicked. It has been days or weeks since he has been hiding, while Twigs was relaxing in the countryside taking drugs and having copious sex without thinking of Zadie or Dom.
Get away from what? Get away from what?
The people chasing her, the ones who killed them, and who he is now hunting. He also found the ID card with the company name on it, while seeing Marion exit the building, helping narrow down the search. He should know more than what the film thinks he does.
That woman who was after her, who is she?
Getting to the specifics, concentrated answers could be attained. It is natural he would ask about her as she is the most familiar to him while Ludendorff is yet to meet Pennywise.
Oh, Marion? No, she's just part of it. She just works for him.
Due to being with Twigs in the club that night, he must assume he is trustworthy enough to be open with.
What are you talking about? Who?
In the age of smartphones and the internet, he did not look for anyone related to Marion based on the information he had.
His name's Vincent Rogue, man. He used to have us over to party.
How did he know Ludendorff? How long was he partying with him? How often do the parties happen? And where?
I thought it was just an easy place to score.
Without any more context, there's not much else to say here.
She got so dark. He made it so dark.
Perhaps the video will reveal everything in its entirety.
He's got this voice, man.
All others ended up dying, so how was he able to survive when they could not?
He burrows inside you, finds the darkest parts of your soul, and gives them a voice.
Is this a completely different power? A variation of the same ability? Or did Dom overcome the desire to end himself? It's as if they are making up the story as they are filming and stitching it together after the fact.
Open and collaborative writing process, and really wanting to honor the kind of the mythos and the mythology of both the graphic novel and the original movie, but really do something that would speak to this generation. And
my earlier conversations with him was before there was a script.
I didn't have a script, actually. I signed on to the film before a script.
So we were like writing and shooting, which is not the best way to do things, but I think the film kind of found its story as we shot it, which is kind of interesting.
What the fuck is this?
And it just gets louder and louder. So you do something evil.
If this is the same ability, would the evil act change depending on who the character is? Or is it dependent on what Ludendorff wants them to do? The implications towards who a character is would be altered significantly depending on which is true. For example, if they are made to do evil and harm themselves, it shows they would rather hurt themselves than someone else, as with Zadie and Twiggs's mother. Alternatively, if there is evil in their heart, they would go on to hurt others.
I still hear it.
So far, if truthful, he is the most mentally resilient, though do the voices grow louder or do they get quieter over time? If Ludendorff were to die, would the voices stop too, or continue regardless?
I never would have made that fucking video if I known what would have happened, man.
So he was allowed to make it? Meaning this situation was a result of Ludendorff being incredibly lax with what people record or do not record. This is a problem of his own making.
What video? Where is it?
Shelly had it on her phone.
How does he know? Did Zadie tell him she sent it to her? Or did he find out through some other means?
Said she had it hidden.
When? How? Not once has Twigs revealed anything to her friends, nor has she told anyone about the existence of this video. The viewer is privy to this, which has been implanted into Dom as a way of communicating this information to Pennywise.
She didn't want anyone to see it.
How does he know this? It wasn't until Zadie sent the video that Twigs even knew of its existence. She then called Dom to warn him, and finally he tracked her to the club on the night they were killed. That's it. That's the entirety of their interaction.
Tried to warn her, but she wouldn't leave without you.
He is describing things that literally never happened.
I knew Shelly a long time. When I saw the way she looked, something was different.
He is describing things the filmmakers want the viewer to think of rather than describing what actually happened. Twigs in a blind panic.
I tried to do something right, man. I just fucked it up.
Just as it is with Zadie and Tattooman, Dom is rising the ranks in being a decent character. As mangled as the story is, it's quite impressive how 3 of the characters have escaped harm, even if the film itself is determined to destroy them.
They won't be far behind me.
Why aren't they already here? Ludendorff's team got the information first. They should be here. Especially when Pennywise was held back by a car fight, getting run over, and having to mend his body in a busy underground tunnel. If the villains were somewhat competent, Dom would have been taken, and Pennywise left to follow the crow to his target without ever learning about the phone and video.
We do what we couldn't do. Get the fuck out.
Again, the progression of time between when he was killed and this conversation is loose at best, so he may be preparing to leave or should have already left. Pennywise returns to the apartment, showing off a poorly rendered crow. Does he have permanent access to the apartment because he went with Twigs, who herself has access because her friend doesn't live there, but has paid for it? Unlike last time, there is no change to the apartment, meaning there is a chance not much time has passed. Touching the coat he wore, he reminisces on the copious sex they had, because it shows 2 people like each other these days. He wears it as if it is a memento of a time when he was happy.
So the jacket that, there's like an emotional beat of the jacket in the apartment scene, and it's left inside out, and then that becomes his,
And the turning of the inside of the coat that sort of, we planted it in the scene with Eric and Shelley in the White Sheets apartment in the beginning of the movie. Where they're just trying clothes on, and there's this kind of cool vintage trench coat there, and then that when he reappears in that, comes back to that apartment, he finds the coat inside out and puts it on, and so it's these kind of organic pieces that he's throughout the movie, he's becoming the crow organically.
Anyway, this is repeated with the curtains, but as sex was the only meaningful thing they did, the sentiment of loss the film is trying to evoke is missing. Grabbing the box from its hiding place, as shown to him by Twigs, he finds the phone and watches the video. How has the phone not run out of battery in the potential weeks? With the type of videos and messages on it, why does it not have a password to unlock it? Anyway, it shows Ludendorff in the video, placing a knife down and whispering to Twigs. Why let Dom keep recording? He was right there. He could have stopped it. Why during a party? This is the first time the voice did not result in the character's suicide. What are the rules here? Are there any rules? Anyway. Moving on, the Vale's total depravity plays as he walks through the streets while raining, likely a reflection of his feelings, filled with sorrow at having learned what Twigs did in the past, which would cause him to question who she is, whether he really knew her, loved the real Twigs, or the illusion she projected. His world is crashing around him as a result. Also, the crow looks distinctly unnatural here while flying.
I found what they killed her for.
It was one of the reasons why. It is likely she was going to be killed off by Ludendorff eventually anyway. That said, it is unclear what his process is.
Shelly, she did something really bad.
Based on what Dom said and what was on the video, she was being controlled by Ludendorff, maybe. He knows this, yet is treating it as if she is acting of her own volition.
And now I can't get it out of my head.
More important than what Pennywise is going through, Tattoo Man has a poster of the Crying Freeman on his wall. A much better film. Also, why is Pennywise going to him and putting him at risk of being haunted too?
I don't think I can do this, man.
Eric, you just need to sit down, bro.
While Pennywise is breaking down, he tries to console him despite not having any information, simply wanting his friend to be okay. Despite knowing why they were killed, him giving up so easily highlights how shallow their love for each other was.
What's going on? Why didn't you just fucking tell me?
Best faith interpretation. She was trying to protect him from the potential risks involved with knowing such things, provided she is a decent human being, which is debatable, most likely to accommodate a crisis of faith, leading him to potentially lose his powers as set up by Crowman.
She should have just fucking told me.
Okay, if she did tell you, could you still love her?
This gives Pennywise pause for thought, however is unable to consider an answer because they are interrupted.
You need to come with us.
Pennywise tries to attack, however gets beaten and tossed around with ease. His fighting spirit sapped after finding out his drugged up fuck buddy was not a saint.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
What was he expecting? Also, how did they find him? Did they follow him? Look for his friends and happen to run into him? Unfortunately, Tattoo Man is killed by virtue of the fact he was simply in the room. Yet another character who deserved so much better. Pennywise struggles as best he could and ends up shot, however discovers he is no longer healing, dying in the filled bathtub. Why was the bathtub already filled? Probably to have the pretty visual.
What have you done?
As he was needed because of his ability to not be killed, restraining him may have been the goal, unless they were not briefed about the threat and were going in blind. While in the tub, his soul finds himself back in the water, chasing after Twigs, only this time he gives up faster, perhaps because he lost his faith in her.
Why am I back here?
His confusion is warranted because his usual resilience has been sapped from him.
You couldn't see it through.
But he was indeed making progress, and had he retained the powers of the crow, he would have succeeded eventually. Adding the rule about love remaining true and changing the characters to unlikable wastes of space is to facilitate this plot point because it is what the filmmakers wanted.
Why did I stop healing?
If the rules are so strict, why didn't Crowman tell him the consequences of wavering in his love? It seems a pretty important detail to be clear about.
I said your love needed to remain pure.
What does it mean to remain pure? How is it measured according to the power? There will be times where one's love for another is tested. Yet the resolve in the individuals to overcome this highlights its resilience. Here, they just have a lot of sex, like two people engaging in hookup culture.
The enemy of love is not hate, it's doubt.
Doubt in what? Love towards another itself? The trust given to another? Their actions? Feelings reciprocated by your partner? In one's own feelings towards one thought to be in love with? What was in doubt here?
I never doubted her.
Didn't you?
While the logistics of how the film ended up here is nonsense, he has a point. Pennywise all but admitted it to Tattoo Man in the prior scene. Why hide it instead of trying to justify it?
You had a chance, and you wasted it.
Technically true, but not all the information was given to him that is relevant to the functionality of his powers.
You were given the power of a god.
Relax. Superman, power of a god. Dr. Manhattan, power of a god. Healing fast, very helpful, and better to have it than to not. A god, debatable.
In the end, you were just a boy.
In this, we are in complete agreement.
At least your soul can move on.
How long has Croman been sending people to kill Ludendorff over the past few centuries? Has he sent many who all failed? Or is this the first time?
Her soul is gone forever into the darkness.
Good. Not even bringing up the fact she killed someone under Ludendorff's influence.
For you, eternity is easy. You just have to breathe.
It sounds a little dull.
And let her go.
Should be pretty easy when he's only known her for a few days, at best.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Sad. Anyway, it's adorable. The film thinks this is a passionate romance.
Mine for hers, my soul for hers.
Is Croman allowed to make such a trade? Would Pennywise take her place in hell or reside in Crow Station forever?
Her soul is damned. The place she's going, you can't imagine it.
This confirms he would take her place in hell, but where would she end up? A soul trapped in Crow Station? Or continuing her life where she left off? If she does come back from the dead, how would everyone react? A question for another time.
It's not about me.
This film is most definitely not about him.
Even if you save her, you will never be with her again.
No. Anyway, last week...
Despite the sparse number of lines, their usage is lackluster and much of it is repeating information already presented.
I know. Now let me do this.
The sheer amount of time wasted in this film by characters pausing in between their lines is simply staggering.
It's not up to me.
A crow picks him and gives him powers again. Only this time, in accordance with the bargain he made, a ritual must be performed.
There is no going back from this.
Cutting their palms, they swab blood, similar to how Ludendorff sucks the souls out of his victims' wounds. Is this power coming directly from Croman? What function did the crow that entered him have? Is it a symbol of acceptance? How was he bestowed power earlier? In response, he writhes and cries tears of blood.
With this black blood, you will move between worlds, just like them.
While prior he traveled between the two locations between deaths, now he has the ability to consciously travel between dimensions. This is a godlike power. With less than 30 minutes left, Pennywise finally gets makeup similar to the crow. Why start with the makeup and costume when it could be left till the end?
Go for the wrong things right.
Opening his eyes, he wakes up in the bathtub. How much time has passed since falling in?
His transformation to the crow is not enjoyable for him. You know, the way the story unfolds, when he finally becomes the crow, he's sacrificed everything that was worth anything for him.
He goes in for round 2, and the armed men are caught off guard as he grabs the shotgun and makes short work of them, finishing the last by using it as a mallet. With the film reaching the finale, the action and violence ramps up significantly as if a switch is flipped as opposed to the '94 film, where it gradually increases till it reaches a crescendo. Afterwards, he sits on the couch next to their bodies and that of Tattooman. Considering how he helped Pennywise, and the alleged friendship between them, he is incredibly dismissive towards his death. I suppose Twigs and Pennywise were a match made in heaven after all. Since when was being cavalier with the death of others a part of his character? Looking through their things, he finds a phone with the messages he needs. Does no one lock their phones in this world? The messages mention the opera. He already has a goal and a guide to help him with his revenge. Why are these additional steps presented? Anyway, Enya's bodyguard plays as he gets ready to go on his grand rampage. Now that he knows the villain's location and the time they will be there, making this a time-sensitive mission, why is finishing the tattoo a top priority? He uses the same tattoo wink as makeup so he somewhat resembles the crow for the finale. It's almost as if this film is ashamed of being associated with the imagery of the crow and tries its best to minimize it as best they can. Naturally, he takes his time doing this. It's not like he needs to be anywhere. This is a side effect of having a passive and reactive character. There is little time for such actions, where in the original, he is active and met the enemy on his terms, meaning he had the time to get ready before hunting. The saving grace of this sequence is the fact that Enya is playing. He wears the coat inside out, and this is something the filmmakers were very happy with, showing that time has stopped for him ever since Twigs' death or some nonsense like that.
Also with Rupert came up with what could work for his facial look. He looked at everything from Batman, the kind of black around the eyes, to the Joker, to all the various iterations, and it ended up, I think, a more wild version. It's more deliberately hand done. It's not such a traditional comic kind of clown.
So the jacket that, there's like an emotional beat of the jacket in the apartment scene, and it's left inside out, and then that becomes his, you know, jacket, and then the makeup as well, where it's just like him sitting in his dad's friend's apartment, dipping his finger into the tattoo ink, and then it goes, you know, starts painting it on. So
Then what the fuck are you talking about, man?
I just call it lazy. Being sad is no excuse for wearing clothes wrong. He grabs his friend's katana and takes it for himself.
I have no pride.
Yet another thing he has taken from Tattooman without any remorse for what happened to him for trying to help. Tattooman, like Zadie and Dom, deserved so much better.
Myron.
Vincent.
Is it true?
Meanwhile, people are arriving at the opera house,
I'm afraid so. He was killed.
confirming the situation as last informed by the henchman.
Are you sure?
I'm sorry.
Wanting to have the crow's powers, he is disappointed. Walking through the streets, Pennywise stands out, especially with a sword in hand. If a policeman sees this, what would happen? Would he try to run away or kill them? Not like he'll try talking. He might question them to death though. It needs no answer, but showing the status of the police would bring a touch of realism to the film world is all. Clearly we needed to see that. Anyway, the opera Robert the Devil, a very subtle pick from the filmmakers, starts as all the players of this film converge, ready to play their part. A slight departure from the industrial rock music found in the original, but as the filmmakers desired, it is different.
When creating an iconic character, you have to start with what's been before, and you obviously have to embellish that and create your own version of it. James O'Barr's original graphic novel was kind of a touchstone for me, but also a leaping off point. There's a mythology there that is definitely the basis of our film, but it was what we have created is a massive departure from anything that's come before.
We really went back to the drawing board in a way because that was a more personal story. As an adaptation, adaptation is destruction in a way. You have to destroy the original in order to adapt something new.
To me, it's like, how do you retell a story about grief, about self-sacrifice, about love, and about violence for this generation?
To be honest, I think Rupert was kind of like sticking more to the comic than the original Crow, which like the real fans of the comic are gonna like.
The first guard is taken out and the fight begins, intercut with imagery and music from the opera, mirroring the central character's journey. To find cover while he climbs the stairs like a force of nature, here to enact retribution on those who wronged him and his loved ones. Why wait till he was so close before shooting? Pennywise too has a gun, but they had the drop on him. For all they know, shooting him first was the goal. Yet they wait till he was close enough to use his blade. With how important some of the people here are, why have they not radioed in the fact a rogue, armed individual is making his way through the building? Surely the safety of the patrons is paramount and should be evacuated accordingly. Then again, the opera would stop and the theme would be absent, and the film needs to satisfy its own pretension.
He's here.
Yet no one leaves. Scoping his targets, he makes his way to Marion, while she calls Ludendorff. This is purely personal. I like this shot of Pennywise walking up the stairs tanking all the bullets, following which he uses all his abilities to gain an advantage, feigning his death to draw them in. The guards would have conflicting information on what he is capable of, provided they know anything at all. They know who he is, and know he does have some ability, but also that he has been killed. This is a very generous reading of the events. The choreographers did well in incorporating the powers of the Crow into a sequence that is brutal and logical. The opera ends and so too does the fight. Were this a different character and film, this may have worked. However, the build-up leading to this moment was incoherent and disjointed. Him tearing up at the end is an interesting touch from the actor, as if to communicate he hates what he has become through his journey, that no matter what, life finds a way to bring him to his breaking point. In addition, with his tattoo being completed, the film shows him crying now, and potentially crying later. Were this any other character, it is fine. Though Eric Draven is one who lets his emotions overwhelm him when he is alone, filled with memories of Shelley, yet when he is fighting his enemies, he is the very spirit of vengeance.
He's here. He's killing all of our people.
Upon hearing this, Ludendorff is delighted.
I'm so grateful to you, Marion.
For what?
Him being gleeful here is odd as nothing he has done makes sense and his actions only make working for him harder for her. This is the moment he tosses aside his pawns.
For getting us this far.
That's all you're going to say?
He is not the type of character to come to her rescue. She should know better. Also, who is in the background of his room? Is she the pianist or someone else altogether?
We're on this ride together, Marion. You just happen to be in the front.
What the fuck are you talking about?
The final bodyguard steps out to face him, possibly to buy her some time. They know what his abilities are, so what is he hoping to achieve? Failing to kill Pennywise? Naturally. He tries to take his own life, however, waits too long and Pennywise cuts off his head. A personal death reserved for the man who took Twiggs' life.
Where is he?
He's not here.
Hence why he asked the question.
Where is he?
His country estate, Healer's Manor.
Reminding me of a much better show. If he is at home, why was he dressed up? Was it to have this specific plot reveal? They are also in a red room, perhaps displaying his rage and bloodlust or some nonsense like that.
You fucking killed us. For what? Was it worth it?
Hindsight is 2020. With what was at stake, it was what they should have done.
It starts off so slow. It's all kept from you.
Perhaps in an effort to bring in and keep new recruits in the organization.
You know what's being done, but you're not part of it.
If she knew, why was she surprised when she took part in all this?
That just like that you are.
According to her, new recruits know what happens, yet are surprised when they have to participate. This is meant to evoke sympathy, but she's just dumb.
You're swallowed up, and the only direction you can go is down.
Just like Twiggs. Did she kill the woman in the video of her own free will? It could be why he has her killed rather than sucking out her soul like with Zadie, because she was going to hell anyway.
You have the same look as him.
No. Pennywise looks like a constipated chihuahua, while Ludendorff looks like a stereotypical evil businessman.
Broken by this culture that exists in our society, the higher echelons that are kind of unattainable, and we've seen it so often recently in these kind of excluded from laws by very good lawyers and money thrown at them to protect them in what they're doing. And I also like this idea of a devil being charming and seductive and being able to break people and then let them fall down to hell slowly of their own kind of.
What look is that?
The look of someone who hates everything inside of him.
He doesn't. This was shown when he was tearing up after killing the men at the front of the opera house. The film is contradicting what it is telling and showing. But then, what else is new?
He just hides it better than you.
Decided what? This idea is not developed because he cuts off her head. As the performers take their bows, he walks on stage and shows the two severed heads. Why? What was the point? Meaning by Cascadeur plays, and the first line is quite on the nose. Followed swiftly by like your angel. She is many things. An angel she is not.
That creature's not worth protecting.
He stands alone on stage, perhaps conveying he is alone after having lived the life he has, I guess. Picking up a bouquet of lilies, he drives Marion's car to the bridge while a noticeably CGI crow follows him. At the bridge, the idea of there being a shrine of lilies for them is paid off, following which he drives to Hill House. He makes his way through the manor, building up to the final confrontation of the film, descending the stairs to face his foe in hell, metaphorically. Ludendorff, meanwhile, is combing his hair. Being this unconcerned despite the risk to his safety could be as a result of his confidence after having lived for so long. Also, with the resources at his disposal, why is his home unguarded? Is he usually this exposed? If so, how has he survived for so long? Pennywise enters his bedroom and...
Face me.
Why? Kill him, he's right there.
Who are you?
Pennywise knows he is the reason both he and Twiggs are dead, and due to his ability in using unnatural means is extremely old. They are, at the least, aware of each other enough to know what the other is capable of.
Just an old man, but I'm real. See? I'm flesh and blood, not like you.
Technically, they both are. Ludendorff not having regenerative abilities is the main difference. Or does he mean he is human and can be killed through regular means? Then again, he is not because he has lived for centuries.
I heard you think you can bring her back. You can't.
A definitive statement. But he may be lying in the hopes of gaining an advantage in the situation.
Where she is, you don't come back from that.
The film insists on this interaction, yet Ludendorff is the only one speaking.
That video, did you see it?
The video he allowed to be recorded while he was in the room facing the phone during the recording.
I know, I'm sorry.
What for?
She's not what you thought she was.
For that to be true, he needs to know her.
It wasn't her. It was you.
The film has been quite unclear at best and contradictory at worst with how his powers work.
You corrupt people.
You can't corrupt what's not already there. A pearl. It's a seed.
This means Dom did not have that seed and neither did Zadie, but Twigs did.
Look at yourself. Look at what you've become.
He has a couple more tattoos and more makeup, so not that different. His actions have become more violent. Then again, he was killed for no reason. Twigs being killed had something to do with it too, I suppose. The shot of Pennywise split into 3 mirrors perhaps shows the 3 stages of his life. One before Twigs, one during, and finally, after. Maybe.
Those eyes. That face.
He can't do anything about that. He was born with them. He could also be referring to the changes present as a result of his demeanor and expression rather than the number of tattoos and makeup.
Why would she want to be with you?
Why would either of them want to be with each other? A question yet to be answered. Also, regarding the visuals, I don't know. I've got nothing.
You have no love left.
I doubt there was any to begin with.
Only hate. You fool.
Why call him a fool? He is, but that's besides the point. All the more so when he is trying to maintain the upper hand in the interaction. Ludendorff tries to stab him and despite blocking the stab, lets him pierce his chest.
You don't feel anything, do you? You don't feel any of it.
Him not flinching could be him having developed a tolerance for the pain after having everything happen to him over the course of the past 45 minutes.
I feel it all.
Only the physical pain, not the emotional felt when having to live without Shelley. Ludendorff uses his voice, and in his incapacitated state, tries to suck the life and healing power out of Pennywise. New images of his childhood home burning is shown. What were the circumstances? Taking things at face value, he did it himself to get away from his mother because the abuse was bad, but that is conjecture. Maybe the actual reasons are different. Despite the hurt in him, he reminisces about the time he spent with Twigs. All 7 days worth, and this power of love is what allows Pennywise to overcome this spell. Even the horse is standing, healed, showing Pennywise is ready to stand and live for the first time in his life. But he can't because he traded his soul. Grabbing old man Ludendorff, he breaks through the walls of reality and sends them both into Crow Station. Landing on the train track, Ludendorff finds himself alone while Pennywise teleports using the power of the crow. Maybe. Which is apparently something he can do.
What is this place?
This is the place where it all ends.
This should be an easy fight now that Pennywise is at full power while Ludendorff is still a regular human.
Will you pay for what you did to her?
To all of them.
If Pennywise teleported beside him, what is he looking at? How did he teleport without Ludendorff noticing he was gone from the point in the station he was focusing his eyes on? Just because something looks cool does not mean it makes sense. He tries cutting, but Pennywise teleports again, while tentacles slither in the water.
Are you scared? You should be.
Why taunt him? This should have ended ages ago.
Oh, you stupid boy.
What does he think he can do? Really?
Is this what you want? You think she's worth it? All this? Eternal hell?
I don't think she is, but the film seems to think so. Also, how does he know Pennywise is going to endure eternal hell?
For what? For some fucking whore?
Yes! Yes!
Coming up from behind, Pennywise punches and drowns him. Unlike in the original where the opponent was a man in his prime, here it is someone old and frail.
You have no idea what hell awaits you.
Yeah, I do.
He doesn't. Then again, it depends on what type of hell. Is it the quirky type or the fire and brimstone? Ludendorff gets pulled under by demons, maybe? And afterwards, Twigs surfaces while he helps her out.
I had this terrible dream. I was falling and I thought I lost you.
She did. How much of her time in the afterlife will she remember, if anything?
It's okay, baby. It's over.
They are really committing to this hug.
You get to go back.
The greatest tragedy in this film is the fact she gets to live.
What have you done?
At least she's not like What's-Her-Face from The Acolyte. Twigs is actually trying to act, and her inadequacies are highlighted by the talents of Pennywise, who is actually good.
I can't come with you.
He may be better off for it.
This was the only way.
This is meant to be emotional, but the background is distracting as the blur is applied uniformly and stands out as unnatural, as if it is artificial.
No, I'm going with you.
A pulse threatens to pull her away, meaning she is in the midst of being resuscitated. Considering she is buried, how is this possible?
This isn't the way it was supposed to end.
Maybe if she told him literally anything, things might be different.
I would do it again.
The lines here are a result of cliché, rather than it being consistent with the characters they are. Also, the crow makeup is essentially Pennywise, but black.
All of it. Every moment.
The film is minutes from ending, and it is time they are tragically separated.
I love you. Forever.
He really shouldn't.
Do you hear me?
Why? 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 What the fuck is this?
No, 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 no! No!
That's okay.
Apparently, Pennywise is dead. The film has transported Twigs to the night they were killed, with the paramedics coming to their aid. How long were they dead? How did the paramedics hear about them? How did they get there so fast? Is Ludendorff and all his associates dead? If not, are they still a threat? How does any of this work?
He fought hard for you.
Shut up, bitch!
Cutting to Pennywise and his tattoo, it is finished, just as it was shown prior to him going to the opera house. How are things that happened in the future now in the past? There's less than 2 minutes left. How is this film fucking up so hard? Pennywise is still in Crow Station. Why is he not in hell? That was the deal.
Our love will live on in everything she does.
The film shows images of the nice times in their relationship.
Someday, I know.
Even shows her getting over her PTSD while interacting with music.
Our souls will find each other again.
Absolutely. In hell.
Till then, I will have just a memory.
If she treats him in any way close to how she treated her friends, he will be forgotten in a few days.
That perfect sensation of love in her.
Again, pretty sure that's the mess she is sweating out.
And that's enough. Almost enough.
As if this piece of shit's gonna get a sequel.
As filmmakers congratulating each other on constantly, creatively investigating material. Mm-hmm. That's our job.
There was a great effort by Sanders in making wholesale changes in an attempt to stand out from the source material to the point it bears little resemblance beyond two names. Starting with the structure, it is unusual. 40 minutes is spent on building the romance by setting up who the characters are, them meeting, being a couple, testing their relationship, and finally bringing it to a violent end. A tall order for any feature film as a whole, let alone 40 minutes. Not impossible, just extremely difficult. This makes up the entirety of Act 1. Act 2 is a further 35 minutes with the final act being 28. Uniformity is not a requirement in story structure, but spending so much time on Act 1 is a massive misallocation of time. As a result, the rest of the story is rushed so the plot points are presented accordingly. This risks leaving vital scenes on the cutting room floor that are needed for the purposes of narrative and character. The 94 Crow was shorter by a few minutes yet accomplishes more by having a balanced structure to the yarn. This affects the pacing significantly where things are either rushed or slow without a happy medium where things speed up and slow down in accordance with the events of the story. This presents the film as two different stories blended together, one the tragic romance and the other the gory revenge tale. The filmmakers could not commit to either, leaving both lacking.
No, it's just I understand it. In a vacuum of information, people all, they make their own assumptions, usually without, really the understanding, which is what happens. I think that probably, and we saw the change just as stuff started to trickle out, and that you started to see the younger audience being like, oh no, this looks amazing. This is the movie for us kind of thing. And it was all people who were my age who was like, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh,
The dialogue is truly fascinating. There are less than 3,800 words worth of dialogue, and far less if it is meant to be meaningful. A shockingly low number because it makes up 20 minutes at most in a 100-minute long film. Maybe even less if it is a highly dynamic script by writers such as Sorkin. This leaves an hour and 20 minutes without dialogue. The sparse amounts of dialogue takes a long time to say as there are multiple pauses in each line, and each shot lasts longer than necessary. For as long as this is, the story is minuscule and stretched to make it seem deeper than it actually is. As a result, the characters lack an opportunity to interact with each other, depriving them of agency, staggering the character dynamics, and leaving the relationships incredibly hollow. This leaves the narrative itself weak because rather than having characters, what is left are caricatures simply going through the motions as dictated by the filmmakers. When there is dialogue, the characters talk at each other, providing exposition for the viewer. As a whole, it is stiff, uninspired, and tries to be far grander than it is, leaving things confusing at best and nonsensical at worst. Dialogue, when executed well, can be a joy to listen to, letting the viewer engage in the yarn that much more. Here, it is not. The mechanics of the characters' powers and how the world interacts with them is all over the place. Ludendorff being alive for centuries begs the question of how he has not been confronted on his age when he was so well known in high society, and how his assets were built up over time. How big is his inner circle, and are his bodyguards aware? The film has shown him to have two powers. One is the ability to control others, the second to suck out the soul of another. When manipulating others, is it simply to get them to kill someone, themselves, or others? Or can other aspects of the victim be controlled? And how long does it last? By being vague rather than establishing concrete rules, the integrity of the story and the verisimilitude within its world are reduced, leaving it all nothing more than nonsense. Also, what does he know about the Crow, if anything? Having lived for centuries and collecting mass knowledge and wealth, according to the film, has he encountered others with abilities? Regarding the Crow and its powers, additional stipulations were added which convoluted the story, bending it in a way to create drama in the film. What differentiated him from others who were killed by Ludendorff to come back on his revenge spree? Have others been brought back? Croman claimed his existence in the mortal world is something unnatural, yet he waited several hundred years before doing anything about it. Also, when Pennywise doubted his love for Twigs and could no longer heal rapidly, had he not been killed by the henchman, could he have lived a full life? Or would he eventually be brought back to Crow Station? In fact, why was he not brought there the moment he doubted? Regarding the ending, if Pennywise was killed and Twigs lived, what would happen to all those who were affected? Are they dead? Do they no longer exist? Or will they live only to die when they were killed in the prior timeline? Do the people killed by proxy live in this new timeline? What would happen to the souls taken by Ludendorff? Would they be free to go to heaven or remain in hell regardless?
And Rupert wanted to kind of completely reimagine the story and the character and tailor it towards a sort of a modern audience that Eric and Shelley can represent. They can get to be sort of this heroic couple for the modern day outsiders and rebels.
The themes here are wholly different from the source. The original is a tale of grief taken to an extreme, when bad things happen to good people. Here, an overt rich against the poor message intrudes itself upon the central plot, actively diluting the romance. Yet, as with everything else in this film, it is half-baked to an impressive degree. Additionally, heavy biblical themes related to the Book of Revelations accompanied the original, where Christ returns from heaven to strike down evil, a role Eric takes on, punishing those who did him wrong while trying to save the innocent in the process, nudging them on to the right path. Despite the vengeance he is driven by, there is an empathy for those around him. Here, both Pennywise and Twigs' friends are killed, sometimes in front of them, and they would quickly be forgotten about. At worst, their dead bodies are left ignored when minutes earlier they were friends and has been nothing but helpful. Finally, love.
This film it's really about love, and it's about finding somebody who sees you like the real you and that can bring you back from your own hell.
In the original, it is earnest and a solid idea of Shelley is presented, due to her and Eric being kind and kindred souls doing their best in a rough situation. Their end is all the more tragic. Despite the remake's best efforts, the characters are not good people, and their situation is a result of them not communicating and choosing instead to have copious sex while getting high. As if that is the equivalent of showing love these days. Combine this with the convoluted ending and the nonsensical meaning attached to everything by the end, it is a perfect storm of inept writing.
We kind of stuck to a modern American Gothic. It's the kind of Gothic to do with sense, not to do with candles and black curtains and stuff.
Visually, there are moments when the film looks as if it could be The Crow. The film, while well shot, does not stand out, leaving it generic and without an identity of its own. With the character's presentation, Pennywise being so tattooed up is a visual shorthand for a hard life, alluded briefly in the film, without exploring any of it, giving the idea lip service and leaving the character hollow regardless. Further attention is given to visual indicators that are easily missed when it could be spent elsewhere.
You know, us having been old goths in the 80s, I know those kids still exist, but what are those kids today? And Lil Peep was someone who had come up early on.
So like who this Eric was, you know, we had this like Lil Peep documentary and about like this kind of scene in that kind of underworld, and Lil Peep kind of became this in for me in a way.
Really?
Yeah, watching that and
Naturally, this highlights just how much of a misunderstanding there was from the creative team of what the story is and who the characters are. The tattoos are hit or miss. Many are left unfocused, some without meaning, and a few with actual substance with no way of distinguishing which is which. For example, the centipedes. In ancient cultures and mythologies they symbolize power and transformation. However, was this used intentionally, or is it something random that happened to have meaning in the yarn? The verse from the Lovecraft poem Despair is appropriate, however it is on his back, often covered or out of focus, making it difficult to read, unless the film is paused. Hence, what impact it may have had is lost. The songs are also odd as some are well chosen while others are not. This inconsistency offsets the tone. The fact the director chose music he liked rather than songs appropriate for the film emphasizes this inconsistency, because it is akin to listening to someone's playlist rather than songs carefully selected for the meaning it imbues into the narrative. What this film exudes most is the storytelling style of Zack Snyder, where the basics of writing are utilized without any understanding as to how they function in a yarn. What sets Snyder apart is the fact that his films stand out visually, for better or for worse. In addition, their films linger without substance, and their dialogue is pure exposition, making Sanders a discounted Snyder. Coming to the characters, let's start with Zadie, who, despite being in the film for 10 minutes, is easily the best character. Despite the crowd she spends time with, she has a strong moral compass, trying to take down an entity who is far more influential in life, in addition to reaching out and warning her friends of her actions and the risk they are in, wanting them to get to safety, reinforcing the fact she cares deeply for her friends and is thinking of how best she can look out for them in her own way. Despite her high-stress situation, she kept a level head, observing her surroundings to the point she is aware both she and her friends are being followed. Her intelligence is on display when she delayed going to the police for fear of losing the evidence to officers in Ludendorff's payroll. Her only fault is that despite being so well defined, she goes home instead of a secret location with less chance of her being found. Even when she is caught and at Ludendorff's mercy, she did not rat on her friends. Not that the script allowed her to talk meaningfully, using the scene instead as a means of exposition for the viewer, but that ultimately works to her benefit. Being killed off as early as she was is a blessing, as the integrity of her character remains even in death, while many of the central characters are continually ruined the longer they are on screen.
Rupert was amazing. He has a beautiful vision for what this new version of The Crow was to be, and I guess wasn't extremely clear and detailed with his direction, and just really made me feel seen and validated every time I was on set, so he was awesome to work with.
Dom is in the film less than Zadie, yet like her, is shown to care deeply for his friends because when introduced, reaching out to Twigs, he was panicked, trying to communicate the danger she is in as quickly as he could. Considering the amount of time that has potentially passed between Twigs getting caught and the club, he is incredibly resourceful, staying hidden and alive despite the large organization searching for him. Finally, he is mentally resilient as he had experienced Ludendorff's mind control ability and is still alive, despite the intense negative effects it has on him. All in all, a decent guy, despite the people he spent time with. Tattoo Man is the least characterized in the film. He is a friend to Pennywise, for reasons. When asked for help or counsel, he offers it without a second thought, showing his intense loyalty like Dom and Zadie. For all that, he is killed for simply being in the room when the henchmen find Pennywise. Marion performs her duty as Ludendorff's right-hand man and is consistent, until the film tries to make her a character and speedruns development in her final moments. She was once an innocent, but was corrupted over time till she rose to her current station, while being extremely expendable to him. While this is a neat idea, the groundwork has not been laid for this arc, leaving only the payoff at the end. This works solely to push the divide between the opulence of the rich and how their actions and desires trample over the lives of the poor. Marion, by the end, was demoted from a typical henchman without a personality of her own to a prop. Sophia, with her alluded past, had a lot of potential. Though due to a lack of commitment from the storytellers, nothing is set in stone and is instead conjured by the viewer in the hopes of having everything make sense. She is disgruntled by the organization she is a part of to the point that despite having found her daughter in rehab ahead of them, she is glad to have her escape. Her actions hint at the idea that were she to not even try and find her daughter, she would be put at risk as well. This, intended or not, displays Sophia's inner conflict somewhat well. With the little shown and her performance, she deeply regrets her past actions, despite the comfortable life she is currently leading, even if the details of her rise and bargain is unknown. Was she already successful and scouted by Ludendorff as with the pianist? Or was she down and out and reached out to him to make a deal with the devil? Despite wanting to protect her daughter, she was unable to, and these emotions are well portrayed. Unfortunately, the writing is not helping her efforts. Croman, or Kronos, is someone. Kronos himself would depend on the interpretation. The Lord of Titans, God of Time, of Immortality, of the Sky, or one of the many others. Here, he is somehow related to crows. Being generous, he is looking to bring balance to the world, sending lost souls back to the mortal plane to set the wrong things right. Yet his efforts till now are inconsequential or non-existent. If he sent others to kill Ludendorff, all have failed for one reason or another. In addition, he does not properly communicate the logistics of how the powers work, and the possibility Pennywise may be the first person sent after Ludendorff at all. If so, why wait so long? Following this through line, is the film trying to argue Pennywise is the only victim of his to love someone so much as he did Twigs? While he is in a limited amount of the film, he is of great importance because he is the reason, allegedly, why Pennywise gets his power. It is unclear if he is responsible for giving him the power, if he is the spirit of the crow, an intermediary, or something else entirely. He is what the film wants him to be depending on what the filmmakers want to happen. He is not a character in his own right, rather a glorified plot mechanic who gives exposition because it's doubtful even the script knows what's happening. Ludendorff is a rich man taking advantage of the poor for his own benefit, which is not an inherently bad idea. It is all about execution. However, the maturity with which it is handled is on par with capitalism on Cenobite in The Last Jedi, surface level and juvenile. The film does nothing with his old age nor experiences, leaving it as set dressing towards a world that is far more supernatural than it seems, creating a disconnect and making the attempted grounded world more fake. Alternatively, the heightened world of the '94 film is more real as a result of the characters interacting with it and influencing each other. He starts off a typical villain and ends as one with glimpses of something deeper shining through because of Danny Huston's performance. A humanity lingering beneath the surface that occasionally peeks through the cracks. This effort is wasted because the script is not interested in exploring him as a character, rather wields him as a caricature to be killed. Top Dollar, on the other hand, had agency, goals, and desires of his own, while standing in opposition to the Crow. This disregard in character building spreads to his abilities, and how the world behaves around him. Despite his age and success, no one seems to be concerned during his public appearances, as if the world is isolated to itself without any life to it, and is merely a means of getting from one plot point to the next. His abilities, vague as they are, rounds off the ineptitude of the storytellers. Despite blunt exposition explaining his abilities and reasoning behind his actions, there is no consistency in how they are implemented. This lets the filmmakers use it according to their needs to bend the narrative to their will.
The one thing that would make me want to do a film is if I felt like a character was a magnified version of myself.
Handling a delicate character like Shelley is difficult at the best of times, and to have her constructed by a performer before the script was written adds to the comedy of errors. Rather than considering who Shelley is, the filmmakers and actors focused on who she could be. Twigs, as such, ended up not portraying a character who was already well defined, but simply inserted herself into the film.
And that was really incredible because I think even with Shelley, she's someone who's clearly dialed in, you know, she's cool, she's going out, she knows the music, she's got friends, you know, she's clearly very much immersed in a scene. So it felt very real to me to bring what I do in London into the film. And you know,
the clothes she wears are ones Twigs wears made by her friends in London. She follows the current trends like Twigs, is a musician like Twigs. The lines she speaks are what Twigs wants to say.
Twigs and Bill came up with most of the bath scene of like Twigs, you know, I remember her saying like, the most romantic thing boys ever say to me, or I want to say to boys, like, what's the first thing you liked about me? And that was really the gestation of that scene. So like,
the script does not help matters as it continually degrades the character by having her actions, values, and desires be antithetical to someone even halfway altruistic. Throughout the film, she looks out only for herself, unlike her friends, Dom, Zadie, and later on, Pennywise. She does not try to reach out to them, or even find out if they are alive, enjoying her life instead, while both her friends risk their lives to warn her of the danger closing in on them. Pennywise, meanwhile, was kept in the dark about everything, and her life needed to be put in risk for her to even consider telling him anything. Things he would need to know before putting his life on the line by being close to her in any way. Yet all along the film, characters continually try to convince the viewer she is indeed a good person. The biggest example of what the film is showing and what it is saying not lining up. Add to this her being addicted to drugs, partying hard, and engaging with the sex with a relative stranger after breaking out of rehab, emphasizes the fact this is anyone but Shelley. That is not to say a protagonist cannot engage in such activities, but who the character is has to be taken into account. Would a potential fictional character be this way? Yes, but would Shelley? No. The tragedy of Shelley's fate was not restricted solely to what happened to her, rather a combination of what did happen and who she was. She, through her actions, empathy, love, and compassion, was a light in a world hell-bent on burning itself to the ground. All of this combined created the conditions and setup in the source material for a spirit of vengeance to return and claim the lives of those who did them wrong. Here, a full 40 minutes is used to develop her character, yet all that was accomplished is dismantling her till nothing of the original is left. The result is truly perverse as it is something degenerate masquerading as something pure. This is something even the film reinforces as, unlike Zadie, Twigs was going to hell without having her soul sucked out by Ludendorff. He, allegedly, cannot corrupt what is not already there, and by the fact Dom was able to resist the negative urges that comes up with his power, it shows Twigs was going to hell anyway, while Zadie and Dom were not. Yet the desecration of character is something the filmmakers celebrate.
And how he kind of meets Shelley and projects all of his hopes and dreams for life again onto her. And then when he loses her, he has absolutely nothing left.
Finally, Pennywise, who was utterly brutalized in this film, and not just physically. This character is Eric in name only, as it was with Twigs and Shelley. In terms of personality, Pennywise could not be more opposite, where he is always reacting to what happens around him without any agency of his own. He is such a void that by the end of the film, it is unclear who he is, and why he likes Twigs as much as he does. He is a victim, but as with the rest of the film, it is unknown why, and is left for the viewer to construct. He is so malleable in the story that he is a conduit the filmmakers used to show the images conjured in their minds before the script was written. Regarding dialogue, he has nothing to offer as most of his lines are asking questions, most left unanswered or outright brushed aside, making for a waste of time as nothing is addressed or expanded upon. His turn from insecure to ruthless killer is the equivalent of flipping a switch, where he is static for a majority of the film, yet as soon as he gets his powers back, he turns into someone else entirely, so much so that he is not bothered by his friend's dead body next to him while joking with his enemies' dead bodies. Ordinarily, this type of switch would be more gradual, where he would start off meek and steadily grow to enjoy the hunt, losing himself in the process. This is not the point of The Crow. Eric is here to put the wrong things right, and despite the rage in him, he is willing to help those around him along the way. A shame because he is a good actor and given the right material can excel, or at least be entertaining. However, this film has the ability to suck the talent out of everyone in it. The characters are an afterthought, bound by the images in the filmmaker's mind without having any development to appear as if they are people in their own right.
The new world of it he's changed quite a lot from the original, and I always think that that's a smart way to go. There's no point in remaking something that's already so iconic. So for me, it didn't become about like playing The Crow. It became about this movie that we're trying to do. And once we got the structure of the movie and the scripts, it's like, okay, so these are the confines where the character's going through, and then that shapes the character as well.
We're really the next chapter in the Crow mythology. We are coming quite a few years after the last one. but the themes and what inspired those people who loved the graphic novel, those people who loved the 1994 movie, those people who loved all the subsequent movies and TV series, all find this same solace in the melancholy. And to me, that's what really attracted me to it.
Adaptation is a curious thing. When a story is translated from one medium to another, there would undoubtedly be changes made necessary for it to work in the new format. When it is a remake, there are naturally going to be things different from the original. Different people have different tendencies, all accumulating into something new, or an inferior mimicry as they are not utilizing their own strengths, rather those of others. Can a remake of The Crow work? Yes. Will it? Unlikely. The greater the achievements and legacy of the original, the greater the pressure to live up to expectations. All the more so if it has to justify its existence when many hope it would not happen in the first place. Could Pennywise have played Eric Draven? In theory, yes, because he is a talented adult pretender. But that would require an earnestness from all involved to be as authentic to the source material as possible rather than following their own desires. The greatest mistake is the fact the filmmakers thought of the original as flawed and needing improvement, distancing themselves as best they can from the source and the 94 film, claiming to make Shelley an actual character while inserting themes of rich versus poor. Because of this mentality, only the names of Eric and Shelley survives, while changes were made to every aspect of the story till this may as well be a completely original film. The result is something generic that wears the concept of the Crow like a skin suit, propping itself up atop the foundation built by its predecessors, and hoping to benefit from it, thoroughly burning it to the ground all while thinking they know better. It takes a special level of arrogance to think so highly of themselves in such matters. The film has no visual identity of its own. The music is a playlist of the director's favorite songs. The actors, while for the most part are trying, are held back by a shoddy script that was written after they were cast, with their input, which is never a good idea. Finally, if not already clear, Eric is a supporting character while Twigs is the one getting all the focus, making this film fundamentally about her. Whereas in prior interpretations, Shelley is the core, while it is propelled and seen through the eyes of Eric. It is a story revolving around him, while she is the foundation holding it together. In short, it is utter shit.
Well, I just think probably theatre goers aren't really like, keyboard assassins at home, as much as genre movie fans are. So look, it's just part and parcel of it. If you listen to the noise in any of that, in a let it, sway anything, you'd be mad.